Loves working in town. It just makes everything so convenient. While she's in town, she can see her friends, go shopping. And it's not, it has its perks.
Alright, I'm gonna start the video and turn the microphones on.
So we're ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're ready.
I'm calling the June 10th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. The first order of business is public comment, and this public comment is when members of the public may address the Planning Commission on any matter not listed on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Is there anyone that wishes to speak during this public comment period? No one on Zoom?
I don't find anybody on Zoom.
And it doesn't look like anybody in the waiting room is.
There's people out there, but I told them.
Okay. Okay, well, since nobody is coming forth to speak during this public comment, then I will move on to item 1 on the agenda. It's the minutes. And we will probably have to do these minutes separately and not as a group because there are a variety of people here and not here. So, so we'll start with March 11. Are there any comments? Yes.
Madam Chair, there's one correction I'd like to see made on page 3. I guess it's the third paragraph under motion. Commissioner McHugh, etc. It says to revoke and rescind. I believe that should be revoke and rescind.
You're right.
Thank you. So noted.
No other changes.
Okay. Any other discussion or changes? Then could I have a motion?
Motion to approve March 11 minutes with that change.
Second.
And a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we'll move on to March 25th. Any corrections or discussion?
I move to accept the minutes as is
For March 25th?
for March 25th.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes for March 25th as presented?
Aye.
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 And April 8th, any discussion or corrections? Okay,
Move to accept as presented. For
okay.
April 8th.
And Duncan was not here, so Todd?
Yep, a second.
Okay. And then all in favor of accepting the April 8th minutes as presented?
Aye.
Aye? Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
just make an observation. Apparently between March 11 and March 25th, the format of the minutes changed from discussion minutes to summary minutes. Is that a conscious thing?
Yes.
I would like to answer that. Yes, it was. Ultimately, doing summary minutes, you know, we were running into time frames in order to be able to get the minutes before the Planning Commission in a timely manner. So if we can capture the appropriate information within the summary minutes, that's what we're choosing to do, unless directed otherwise.
I have no objection to it. I just want to point out that happened.
Yeah,
Yes,
there was
yes.
discussion some time ago about doing that, and we agreed to accept it, so. Okay, then moving on to item 2 And item 2 is being, staff is requesting that this item be continued. It is an appeal of planning director's decision P-21-01, an appeal of the planning director's decision to deny an extension under urgency ordinance 1355 for commercial cannabis cultivation license number 229 for 2104 Union Ridge Road, Weaverville. The appellant is Vladimir Pavlovic and Dorle Gislovic, and its assessor's parcel number 025-100-15-00. And it was continued for May 13th, and they're requesting that it be continued to a date undetermined. Does staff want to say anything about this item?
No, that covers it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Then we will be opening a public hearing for this item. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the lobby or the room that would like to speak on item 2?
I have no hands raised.
Okay, then if we could have a motion to continue this to an undetermined date.
Yeah, I'll motion to continue this item to an undetermined date, item 2.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so item 2 has been continued to an undetermined date. Item 3 is an annual initial variance CCD-20-34, a request for a variance from the required 350-foot cannabis cultivation setback from neighboring residential dwellings, PCC 17.43.050.8.8. Project site is located at 261 Laurel Drive, Hayfork. The applicant is Scott Stein, and its assessor's parcel number 014-300-22, and the planner is Villa Hempkey. I do want to say that I am friends with the person that wrote the letter against this item, but because it is not an adjacent parcel or within the 350 feet, I think I can be objective and not recuse myself. So take it away now.
Good evening, Commissioners. This variance request is for a new license located at 261 Laurel Drive in Hayfork, and is requesting a reduction of the 350-foot residential setback from 2 nearby residences. This variance was initially taken off the May 13th Planning Commission agenda because with a strict interpretation of the Cannabis Variance Code section, this site would not require a variance because the residential structures that are located less than 350 feet from the proposed cultivation site are not on adjoining parcels. Subsequently, at the May 13th meeting, staff was directed to start the amendment process to remove the word adjoining, as the Planning Commission determined that this language is inconsistent with the original intent of the 350-foot residential setback requirement. This future amendment would ultimately require the applicant to have an approved variance prior to license issuance. Therefore, the applicant requested staff to schedule this variance for today's hearing in anticipation of the code amendment. One comment was received from the neighbor located on APN 014-313. This neighbor's residence is more than 350 feet from the proposed cultivation site. Staff facilitated the opportunity of communication between the 2 neighbors. The applicant wished to provide a response to the neighbor's comment, which is included in the staff report. The Planning Commission has previously approved variances in which a neighbor with a residence more than 350 feet from the proposed cultivation site submitted comments expressing concern. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve this variance through the motion written on page 2 of the staff report. The applicant should be available on Zoom for questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of staff? do you have any questions for staff?
No, I don't think so.
All right, then we will open public comment. And with the applicant, is the applicant on Zoom right now?
He said he would be, I don't know if he is. Scott, are you on Zoom? Maybe not.
All right, is there anyone that would like to speak during public comment on this item? If he happens to come on, then if you will please let me know. And we will bring it back to the commission.
Yeah, I don't see anybody.
Okay, thank you. So, my comment is that the couple who are objecting to this, their main problem is with what we've heard in the past, cannabis in small areas. And while I agree with that, this project is within the ordinance that we currently have, and we have to work with the ordinance we currently have, and not with the one that we might like to have. And so I think this should be approved.
When you say it's within the ordinance that we currently have, could you clarify that for me?
The ordinance that we currently, our current ordinance allows for cannabis cultivation on the size parcel he has and in the area where he resides. And because our ordinance allows for that, it would be a legal grow. I mean, there's no reason to deny it because it fits within the ordinance that we have. I completely understand and agree with the fact that parcel size needs to be raised, but that's not the ordinance that we have now.
If I may, Madam Chair. While I sympathize with the neighbor that is farther than 350 feet away, water is a major issue in our community as the drought persists and agriculture is intensifying within our rural communities and can be felt exponentially on small lots. But as you're saying, you know, it fits within the realm of the ordinance, and the EIR, well, I'm not sure if it has been exercised, provides mitigations for assumptions of water, cumulative water impacts. And I guess I would like to ask staff if that mechanism has been exercised as of yet in terms of establishing if it's the same water source and if the water source is being taken, what mitigations have taken place.
I would like to have Ms. Hedke discuss that question.
Sure, thank you.
Was your question that just to clarify before I try to answer it, is if the portions of the mitigation measures from the EIR are being implemented?
With regards to water and the impact on neighboring properties with groundwater that is presumed to be the same water source, there was mitigations in the EIR to address that. And is that being implemented, or has that been implemented at this point?
We're currently not implementing mitigation measures from the EIR until we have a transition plan in place.
Right. Okay.
For what that means per site, you know, we're not implementing the mitigation measures right now. Actively.
Actively. And so if there's a neighbor that requests that mitigation be implemented, is that within the county's, the planning department or the cannabis department's ability, or is that they're standing off until Until when?
Until we have a transition plan.
Until they have a transition plan.
Until staff is directed to do the appropriate way of implementing mitigation measures site specifically.
And is there a timeline for that?
I'm not really the one that should be speaking about
Yeah.
the transition plan. That would be David Colbeck or Kim Hunter.
Okay.
They're working on it.
Right. And this is an issue that is being magnified throughout the county presently. And so I sure hope that staff can get on finding ways of mitigating that before, so that neighbors don't lose water.
Thank you for bringing that forward.
I would also like to say that this particular area has traditionally had a number of illegal grows, and we all know that they are worse many times in terms of water consumption and the degradation of the environment. And this particular one, anybody that wants to become legal has to follow the rules, where they end up illegal again and could be put out of business. So in an area where there's traditionally a lot of illegal growing, I'm I like to encourage people to become legal, because that is a mitigation.
I can agree with that. I have one of the thoughts though that I didn't get to read through everything because of how my weekend went with company and everything else. But I've noticed that we're having a lot of these, and I've only been on the board just a short period of time, and we're having a lot of people come in and say we would like a variance in like this 350 to where it's reduced. And it's like, well, if we're gonna have the rule of like 350 degree set or 350 foot setback, and then whenever somebody just wants to do something and it's like, oh, we'd like a variance on that where we can come in and change that. I know people in Hayfork and other places, it's like they would love to buy a piece of property, but they can't, and it's like, because there's, because the property is growing up with so much pot and everything else around there, or all the cannabis coming up, and it's like, and somebody comes in and buys a smaller parcel, and then they start doing it, and they fill out the thing, and oh, I'd like the 350 variance setback thing, I'd like that waived for me to where we can come in and do this. It's like, that sure puts the hurt on people who are not in the cannabis industry. Do you see my perspective on that? Because it's like, there are people who come to me and they're like, Todd, it's like, I would like to be able to buy a house, but I can't afford to do it because of all this. And then something, and I don't have a clue who these people are, how long they've been there, and none of that really is relevant. But it's like, that if we continue to just set back, oh, we'll amend this one, we'll give variance to this one, and that is like, well, why don't we just say it's 150 foot, which is the ordinance, and we not worry about it, so then we just stick it to the, does that make sense what I'm trying to share?
It does make sense, but what you need to be aware of is that part of the whole thing is that there are people who buy a piece of property, and for whatever reason, they can, for a number of reasons, and often it's good reasons, they cannot put their cultivation site in an area that is over the 350 feet from a neighboring residence. And that's part of the whole ordinance. And this is something that it's unfortunate because you haven't had the background yet.
Correct, that's where I'm a little confused.
But if you have a piece of property and half that property is sloped in such a way that you would have to do extensive grading in order to cultivate in that area, or it's treed so that you would have to do extensive logging in that area, or if it's adjacent to a water source where you cannot put a cultivation site. There are a number of reasons why you may not be able to put a cultivation site within, outside of the 350-foot area. And those are the things that somebody goes out and they inspect the site and they say, okay, they can't put it anyplace else. It has to go here.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
And could I add one, Madam Chair? And the 350-foot variance can only, or is, the variance is allowed if the neighbors within 350 feet say, yes, we are okay with that.
Yeah, if
Right, so
the
it's
adjacent
not a
neighbor,
guarantee, they come before us, the
Yes.
commission, and discuss it, and if there are concerns, then those are addressed. And so with this particular item, none of the homes within 350 feet had any objections.
Thank you.
And the only objection was one with more than 350 feet, and so that's why it's not as
Okay.
into the purview of the 350-foot setback.
Thank you for the clarification.
okay, is there any further, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Then if we could have a motion.
I motion to grant the variance from the required 350-foot cannabis cultivation setback from the two neighboring residential structures of TCC 17.43.050.A.8.
There's
Is that appropriate?
There's actually a recommended motion on page 2.
Page 2.
It
Yes.
says
Pardon me, I rescind that motion. I move to approve the cultivation cannabis variance CCV-20-34 to reduce the cultivation site setback in the county code section 17.43.050.A.8 from the 350 feet to 203 feet from the residence on APN 014-290-01 and to 213 feet from the residence on APN 014-300-16, subject to the findings and the facts and conditions as stated in this staff report.
Is there a second? Then I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just, okay, aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Okay, item 4, the annual initial variance, CCV-20-51, a request for a variance from the required 350-foot cannabis cultivation setback from a neighboring residential dwelling, TCC 17.43.050.8.8. Project site is located at 1820 Post Mountain Road, Post Mountain. The applicant is Sherford Yang, assessor's parcel number 019-610-12-00, and the planner is Bella Hedke. And
This commercial cannabis request is for an existing license located at 1820 Post Mountain Road in Post Mountain, and is requesting a reduction of the 350-foot residential setback from one nearby residence. The associated commercial cannabis license was issued in error in 2018 and 2019 by former Cannabis Division staff because this cultivation site did not meet the 350-foot residential setback requirement. An approved variance is required in order for the licensee to proceed with the 2021 licensing process. No comments were received for this item, and staff recommends approval. And the applicant is here tonight, if you'd like to ask anything.
Okay, I do have a question. Where is, the site plan is beautiful. I mean, it's all labeled with everything except a residence. Where is the residence?
I don't think you, Sure Board? Do you have a residence yet? I don't think there is a residence on
It's
here.
a non-resident, just a house.
Does he have,
Building permit?
yeah,
As far as the variance is concerned, I'm not looking if there's a building permit or not. I can certainly try and figure that out, either on, do you have a building permit issued?
For mine?
Yeah, do you have a building permit issued?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can verify that if you need me to, later, but for the variances, I don't normally do that type of research.
but he can't get licensed without.
That's true, I'm not saying that he has one or not. He said that he has an issued building permit, but if you'd like me to verify that, I can pull up my cell phone and try and look into SmartGov and verify that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I would like.
During public comment, maybe?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Any other questions of staff?
Again, this is, how many years has this license been under cultivation?
Since 2018.
Since 2018. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further questions? Then, Mr. Yang, did you want to speak? No? Okay. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this item?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Lisa Wright from Lewiston. Just a couple of things in general. Number one, you pointed out a building permit, a question about that for cannabis licensing. So that structure doesn't need to have been completed, just a building permit pulled. Normally, when they do an application review, the county does not accept or process renewals without a complete checklist being followed, which would include the building permit being in good standing, or he wouldn't have really gotten to this point yet. Also, sometimes variances will pop up later. So he could have been cultivating since 2018, and because of the dwelling requirement, what we're seeing, especially in the Pines, where they're small parcels, is that now someone is just bringing that dwelling in, right? They had their building permit pulled, the dwelling hasn't been either delivered or constructed, you just need to show progress. You don't have to have your dwelling completed to have your cannabis license. So you may start to see variances pop up for that reason. A dwelling is now just appearing there. So it would be nice for the commission and potentially the board to consider whether that's really a feasible long-term solution, is to require dwellings on such small parcels that are really just there to cultivate cannabis, and is that really creating potentially more blight than it is actually doing good. You also create more security risk as well when you require people to reside at farms where there's a valuable cash crop, right? And so I think we see home invasions happening in that area, for example. We have clients affected in that manner. So I just wanted to weigh in and just share a little bit of experience with you in general around variances. And I would recommend and suggest and request that you approve the variance for this gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you. And while I appreciate your comments, as I said previously, we have to deal with the ordinance we have, and the ordinance we have requires a residence. Yes?
Jake Russell, Christie, Court, I'd love to echo everything Lisa said.
Jake, can you
Yes.
get the microphone closer to you, please? Thank you.
Is that better? As usual, when I'm at these meetings and anybody in the Pines is making any sort of attempt to try to be licensed, to try to do something positive up there, I would send an astounding encouragement to everybody on the board to support whatever the small number of people are up there trying to do it right. Thanks.
Thank you. Don?
So the Echo Chirpor's answer, he does have a valid issued building permit for a dwelling.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom?
I don't show anybody.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the commission. Any comments?
Yeah, I resonate with what Jake mentioned with regards to people in the Pines looking to have a regulated commercial business is a good sign, and I want to encourage it. And if it fits within, it sounds like it fits within the ordinance, and there is no written, or nobody writing up anything to go against it.
Well, and in fact, the neighbor that is the 228 feet away appears to have a large cultivation site as well, so.
Can't see that.
So is there any further comment from anyone? Then we need a motion.
If I may, I motion to approve the commercial cannabis variance CCV-20-51 to reduce the cultivation site setback in Trinity County Code 17.43.050.8 from 350 feet to 228 feet from the residence located on APN 019-620-41, subject to the findings and facts and conditions as stated in this staff report.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it is unanimously passed. That brings us to item 5. That's a conditional use permit, P-19-38, a request for approval of a conditional use permit for commercial cannabis uses, including nursery, processing, distribution, type 6 non-volatile manufacturing, and 5 testing uses. The project site is a 6.9 acre parcel located at 311 Industrial Parkway, Weaverville, which is situated in the lower bench area of the Trinity Alps Business Park. The proposed project would develop the property with facilities and infrastructure to accommodate the proposed uses. The subject property is zoned as specific unit development, which at this location, Area 1, Trinity Alps Business Park, lower level, allows for industrial uses, including wholesale sales and distribution conducted within a building without the need for securing a use permit, and any use with more than 20,000 square foot of floor and/or would exceed 60 decibels at the property line of the use and/or generates air emissions, noise, offensive odors, which may be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare after first securing a use permit. The proposed CEQA determination is a mitigated negative declaration. The applicant is Trinity Equipment and Materials, LLC, TEAM team. Authorized agents are Tom Blanco and Flora. Successors parcel number 024-220-56-00, and the planner is Kim Hunter and SHN. There is also a memorandum reminding the commission that there was originally an approved conditional use permit located at this site to facilitate the development and operation of a commercial cannabis nursery on May 24, 2018. The conditional use permit was issued on June 7, 2018 and set to expire on June 7 of 2020. But since then, the property has changed hands, and an extension of time was approved by the Planning Commission on September 10, 2020, set to expire June 7, 2021. As of today's date, The use approved for the CUP P-17-51 has not been established consistent with Trinity County zoning code. And that resolution is attached on the memorandum.
That's not on that property, that's on the adjacent property.
I'm not your turn. Yes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Lisa Lozier. I'm going to be presenting this item on behalf of Kim, who is not able to be with us this evening. So in regard to the memorandum that is on an adjacent parcel, directly adjacent to, and the letter was not in favor of this project for the specific reason that they felt that it would be unnecessary to have two types of distribution facilities directly adjacent to each other. So I wanted to make sure that the Commission had the information that the adjacent parcel, the use permit that was previously approved, has expired for lack of moving forward with the project. There are specific conditions that they need to meet, specific standards as far as submittal of building permits, having building permits issued, and also breaking ground in order for them for the county staff to determine that they have commenced with the use permit, and those things have not happened. So basically that use permit expired on June 7th.
And so they cannot move forward with
That's
it.
correct.
Yes.
They could ultimately come back and reapply if they choose to do so, but for that particular use permit, it's expired. So I wanted to clarify that, in regard to the bigger picture of moving forward with hearing item number 5. So all of that said, I won't go back through and rehash all of the information in the description. Basically, the project is located at 311 Industrial Parkway in Weaverville, APN 024-220-056. General plan is industrial. The zoning district is specific unit development, which was ultimately designed with specific criteria that addresses industrial types of uses for this particular area. And the staff report, when it was written, specifically addresses those issues as far as consistency with the specific use development district and the general plan industrial. So on the project description, the purpose of this project is to operate a commercial cannabis business on site as a permitted and licensed use under the county's cannabis ordinance. The project as proposed meets the requirements for uses compatible with the industrial general plan designation and is consistent with the specific unit development zoning. For related uses, zoning and uses, the subject property has been zoned by the county as specific use development, as I mentioned earlier, which at this location allows for industrial uses, including wholesales, distribution conducted within a building, and with any use conducted within a building without the need for securing a use permit, and any use with more than 20,000 square feet of floor area and or which would exceed 60 decibels at the property line of use, generates air emissions, noise, offensive odors, which may be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare after first securing a use permit. So basically, what that's saying is the specific unit development has performance standards that, if it meets these specific thresholds, a conditional use permit is required. And that's what the project was reviewed for. So what they're proposing on their operations is a nursery operation, which would be conducted inside propagation chambers in the buildings up to 2,000 square feet, and up to 20,000 square feet of enclosed greenhouses with impermeable floors. The nursery will employ two people for 4 months of the year and 8 people for 8 months of the year. And it references a attached project site plan. The proposed operations listed also processing operations conducted inside an enclosed steel building up to 5,000 square feet pursuant to state license conditions. Interior environment will be strictly controlled, including temperature, humidity, airflow, exhaust, subject to carbon filtration. Processing operation will employ up to 20 persons, with the largest numbers expected between June and December. Also includes non-volatile manufacturing operations to be conducted inside an enclosed steel building up to 5,000 square feet pursuant to state license conditions. Interior environment will be strictly controlled, including temperature, humidity, and airflow. Exhaust subject to carbon filtration. Entrances, exits, loading docks, cannabis storage facilities, and related operations covered by video monitoring and 24-hour security on site. This part of the operation would employ 4 to 8 persons throughout the year. Distribution is also included as a part of this staff report. Operations will be conducted inside 1 to 2 enclosed steel buildings, each up to 5,000 square feet, also pursuant to state license conditions. Interior environment will be strictly controlled, including temperature, humidity, airflow, exhaust, subject to carbon filtration. Entrances, exits, cannabis storage facilities, administrative hold areas, packaging, loading docks will be covered by video monitoring, 24-hour on-site security, and this part of the operation would employ 6 to 12 persons throughout the year. Finally, it lists testing operations to be conducted inside an enclosed steel building up to 2,000 square feet pursuant to state licensing conditions. Strictly controlled environment, temperature, humidity, airflow, entrance strictly controlled by key card system. Listing cannabis remaining after testing would be destroyed. Operation will employ 2 to 4 persons throughout the year. Let's see, what else? So the subject property's main access is provided through an existing paved road, and which has access to Industrial Parkway, and from an unimproved on-site access road through a controlled block gate. So no new roadway or encroachments are expected for this project. Water is provided to the project site by Weaverville CSD. Project site will not require the use of any groundwater or other additional water resources for its operations. It is proposed that the nursery is the only proposed use that will consume a significant amount of water beyond that of what would normally be required for employees working on site. Domestic water discharge. Site maintains an existing municipal sewer system that would continue to serve the subject property, which would treat typical residential grade wastewater from daily employee use. With the anticipation of all total about 44 full-time employees. Wastewater runoff from the nursery operation will be captured by floor drains and directed to a cistern that would be pumped and trucked off-site. Okay, so staff sent out requests for comments to agencies, comments received were from the Weaverville Sanitary District, with them requesting payment of applicable fees associated with the wastewater connections. Comments from the Weaverville Sanitary District has been included as a condition of approval for the project. Public comments received. Comments were received from CDFW, which is California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Their comments were included in the initial study mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. A summary of those comments is included in the staff report, and Mr. Gary Reese from SHN is also available online and would be able to address questions in regard to the mitigated negative declaration. Okay, so the project site has been designated as an industrial, and this project, as proposed, does fit within the parameters set for what the general plan describes as appropriate for industrial districts. And for county code compliance, this project was reviewed for compliance with the typical standards that are present in the Special Unit Development District, the SUD that is currently on that project site. And goes into detail about how those particular different types that I mentioned earlier would be related to with compliance with the code, with our Trinity County commercial cannabis ordinance. So I apologize to everyone up front. I'm not super familiar with this project, so bear with me. I just want to make sure we get through the information that is pertinent, and then we can direct any specific questions. So an environmental review document was prepared for this project. It was determined that a mitigated negative declaration would be appropriate. That document was prepared and was reviewed and submitted according to state guidelines, was posted, and has been available on the county website. Those mitigations are also included in the conditions of approval that are attached with this staff report. So the conditional use permit findings that are located in section 1732.010 states that certain findings need to be made in order for a conditional use permit to be approved. And that is number one, sound principles of land use. Use permit shall be granted upon sound principles of land use. The finding, as required by the county's cannabis ordinance, the applicant is applying for a conditional use permit to allow nursery processing, non-volatile manufacturing, distributing, and testing operations on assessor's parcel 024-220-056, located in Area 1 of the Trinity Alps Business Park. That is the official title of the subdivision or the special use ordinance. You know, we call it an SUD, but that's the particular name of it. Evaluation of the project has determined that the project is proposed, condition mitigated, is compatible with the general plan land use designation, neighborhood character, and the intensity of uses in the surrounding area, consistent with the county cannabis ordinance and compliant with CEQA. Finding number two, not injurious, as a use permit shall not be granted if it will be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or if it results in the creation of a public nuisance. This project is proposed, conditioned, and mitigated, will not cause detrimental effects to the public health, safety, welfare, or result in the creation of a public nuisance. The project site is surrounded entirely by Assessor's Parcel 24-220-046, which has a general plan designation of industrial with underlying zone of specific unit development. Surrounding land uses include former sand and gravel operation, former soil business, and a commercial cannabis nursery approved by the Planning Commission in 2017. Bordering the proposed project parcel, closest sensitive receptors to the project site are more than 650 feet from the project and will not significantly be impacted by potential impacts from the project. Number 3, plan consistency. A use permit must comply with the objectives of the general plan or specific plan in the area for which it is located. Finding that the project is, as proposed, conditioned, is consistent with the goals and objectives of the county general plan, specific unit development, zoning district, as the proposed project consists of land uses that are commercial and light industrial in nature. So that takes us kind of to the end of this and to where we would get to the staff recommendation. And at this point, there's a couple of things that have been brought to staff's attention. And I would like to just go through those briefly and would encourage you to go back to page 3 when we're discussing the proposed operations. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not significantly familiar with our cannabis ordinance. It's not typically the realm that I work within for Trinity County. But it was brought to my attention that on the proposed operations, on number 2, on processing, that processing is not, when processing is not related to a specific cultivation type of a use, that it's not something that stands alone. The processing is not a standalone use. And also on number 5, on the testing operations, the proposed project does include a testing facility within the realm of what it is that they wish to do as a whole project. But when you take a look at our commercial ordinance, testing is not allowed to be conducted on the same site by persons that hold licenses for various other commercial cannabis types of uses, like the nursery and manufacturing and distribution. So the testing would actually have to be separately done away from the other uses that they're proposing on the property. So these are a couple of issues that, the use permit as it is presented to you addresses those as a whole of the project. But it isn't necessarily consistent with what our ordinance specifically says. So I'm bringing that to your attention. I also want to bring to your attention that when this use permit was written, it addressed the SUD zoning district as required in our ordinance, and it addressed the overall policies and objectives of our general plan industrial code. But what it didn't include is specifically in the cannabis ordinance, there are sections and subsections that require findings be made and that conditions apply to each of nursery, distribution, and manufacturing. And those were omitted from the staff report and from the conditions of approval. So in regard to my recommendation. I would like to leave that within the hands of the Planning Commission for discussion and to come to a conclusion of how we would like to address those non-conformances, for lack of a better word at this moment. And I will turn that over to the Planning Commission.
So our choices are to go ahead and we'll have to hold the public hearing in any case.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
But
ma'am.
our choices are to go ahead with this item and try to have the changes read in by SHN.
That's one option.
Another option would be to continue it to our next regular meeting.
That would be an option.
And another option would perhaps be to continue it to a special meeting on perhaps the 24th of June.
If that is an option, it would be dependent on, availability of the Planning Commission and, some discussion on that.
Okay.
Excuse me, Lisa, our 24th of June, we already have a meeting.
We'll discuss that later.
Oh, okay.
So the issues are that we don't have all the findings that we need for each separate item, and also that we don't currently have a county processing ordinance, and that we currently require actually the state also requires testing to not be part of other cannabis activities. And so there are substantial changes that need to be made. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, does anyone else have questions of staff?
Nailed my question.
Okay. Then we will open to public comment.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Tom Belanco of Douglas City. I, along with my partners, are the applicants in this. And I do want to say I appreciate staff's effort and SHN's effort in really making this the county's own project. I certainly felt ownership in this project. But as a lead agency, this is really the county's project. So they stepped up for that. A couple of clarifications. Processing. Trinity County does not have a processing license. It's no fault of the county. CDFA invented that license type long after we had done a lot of our licenses. Trinity County should have a processing ordinance that allows us to do processing, because that takes trimming, processing, out of the extended areas of the counties, all the traffic, all the excess, and it puts it into a central location where it's more appropriate. So whatever that means, the state allows processing, obviously. I don't know what to do on that aspect, whether we conditionally approve it and say you can do it once the county adopts an ordinance, or in places that distribution and manufacturing, which are similar, allow it, we allow it. I don't know what to tell you on that. As far as testing goes, we do have a testing ordinance. Team, you should know, is not the licensed entity. They are, have the property and intend to lease to licensed entities. For instance, the distribution company is called Producer Owners of the Emerald Triangle. It is a licensed entity. We intend to lease to a licensed testing lab, Pure Analytics, Two River Labs, whoever wants to come there. Every 50 pounds of cannabis that goes through distribution has to be tested. And those 50 pounds have to have 75 1-gram individual samples pulled, plus an additional 75 grams. So it takes hours to test just 50 pounds. So that means if we're distributing even one farm that has maybe 500 pounds, that's 10 samples, it can take up to a day. So having a test facility contiguous to where distribution is happening is really essential for our costs and for a testing lab. So we want testing to be able to lease to another entity. As far as the findings go, I see the findings in the staff report. If they're not sufficient, I would love it if SHN feels like they can fill in the blanks on the findings. I feel like this is an appropriate use for this location. I'm happy with the MND. Comments were very minimal. CDFW made a few comments. We will check for turtles and birds before we do any construction. Otherwise, that's about all the comments they had. So if the commission has any other questions, I'm available to ask that. I would urge you, we've been at this for a long time, and we have a lot of work to do if we want to hit the fall season, and we do. So I would urge the commission, if it's within your power, to act this evening on this. Thank you. And I'm here if you have questions.
Thank you. Does anyone, before you go, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Blanco? Go ahead.
So, if I understand it, you're applying for the use permit you don't intend to use for a testing permit. You're trying to put a permit, a conditional use permit on the property that would allow someone else to come in and get a license.
Correct. This is the use permit. It's not the license.
I understand.
So we want a
Why are
permit
they coming
location.
in and getting the use permit for their operation? Because you're coming in and asking for a use permit on a facility that you're also asking for a use permit for distribution and so on. You're asking for licenses, you're asking for the same use permits,
Correct.
which from here looks like they conflict based on the ordinance. So if a different entity came in and leased property from you, which would be fine, and applied for a testing use permit, that would seem to make sense. I'm just confused about the approach you're taking.
Well, I think, and this is where our ordinances get a little confusing, because we have a use permit and a license. So a county testing license is not a use permit. You would need a use permit to get a county testing license. This use permit will not give us a county distribution license. It will allow us to apply for a county distribution license and a state distribution license, or as our leased entity. So the same thing for the testing. It's not the testing license, it's a testing use permit. So then whoever came to occupy that would have to comply with county and state licensing requirements. I don't know if that makes sense, but I didn't write those ordinances.
I understand your line of argumentation. I'm not sure I buy it, but okay.
I do have one question, one other question. I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe that, I think it was Redwood Valley, tried to get, they had a similar situation, and they tried to get the state license for testing based on the fact that they had not, that different people were doing different aspects, but that but they all were under the same lease. The same people were leasing all of those different operations, and the state would not give them the license.
And that makes sense. No one who has any financial interest in any commercial cannabis license can have testing and vice versa.
But you're just saying that the people that are leasing this whole complex want to lease to another, to somebody to do the testing.
Correct.
Which is the same thing. They will have a financial interest in all of it. And so the state probably will not allow that.
Well, I'm certain the state will allow, whether Trinity sees fit to allow it, I can't say.
I don't know. Because that's what I just described about with Redwood.
Well, if you take The closest example I can think of, because I know it exists, is Desert Hot Springs.
Okay.
They have a very similar business park.
And it's the same lessee do all of them?
Same lessee does everything. Now, you can't have a lease where you make a percentage of the testing lab, but you can have a flat lease, $2,000 a month. Well, I make $2,000 and 5% of your business, then I would have to be on the license for the testing lab, which we couldn't be. But if we just take a lease, we're not considered a financial interest holder in that lease,
Okay.
in that license.
Okay, just curious.
It's a good question.
Okay.
But, I mean, the state is actually the one who's really on that. Because
Right, and well, exactly. I was just curious as to what your take on that was. Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other further questions? Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Next.
There's not much I could speak more to what Mr. Belenko said. I mean, this is his project, this is his baby that's been processing for 3 years. Flora jumped on it last minute to help with SHN, thank you Gary, by the way, to get it all here in front of you. It's a long time coming. The structures that Tom, with the leasing and licensing, it all makes sense. Addressing the processing component of things, with a cultivation license, you are able to process. Nursery is cultivation at the state level. And so one of my arguments to the processing would be to fit in, we have a cultivation component on site, and we allow processing with cultivation. Again, the amount of, if you think of it from an environmental standpoint, the amount of traffic that will be considered in all of these CEQA checklists that are to come with our EIR is really going to be based on harvest season. So you may have 2 employees year-round, but come harvest, you may have 20 people coming up and down your road just to get your harvest done. And that might be 1 time a year, that might be 2 to 3 times a year. So when we're looking at a central location, not only for the other uses around it, somebody can have a one-stop shop here, literally. A farmer or the distribution license, can come out and get the product from the farmer straight out of the garden. They can take those wet plants down to the processing center, get them all processed. That distribution center can then take it over to their testing friends, get it tested, and then the distribution center can then sell it from there to retail locations, or they could sell it to the manufacturers right there as well. So this is a project where it encompasses all of these activities in one space, because then that allows farmers to deal with 3 to 4 businesses working together in the same location to get their product from their growth to the retailer or the manufacturer or another distributor, wherever it ends up going down the chain. I think this is a brilliant idea. Again, when we're thinking of the environmental impact we're going to be reviewing later this year and next year of individual farms having lots of people coming back and forth to harvest, this would cut down significantly on the environmental impact that the rest of these farms in this county would have, and instead bring it into a property that has been previously used for much more significant, environmentally significant uses. Nothing is going to be dug on this park. It's all built off of something that's already been existing. So for somebody who's been doing this for 4 or so years now, this is one of the most concise, straight-up projects that I've seen, and we're happy to stand behind it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jake Grossman, Chris Hayfork. I think in common sense, use-wise, an industrial park for all these uses is no-brainer, location-wise. To address Commissioner McHugh's question, previously on this property, as you guys know in land use, the conditional use permit goes with the land. The previous people on this property had a conditional use permit for a concrete plant, which was operated by a lessee. So what we're looking to do is completely in line with everything that traditionally has happened on that property. I also would urge the commission, we were talking about different options, how to move forward tonight. I would like to suggest possibly if we need to spend more time looking at testing or looking at the processing, which in reality is a no-brainer, but also in reality with our ordinance, as everyone stated tonight, it's not perfect, but it's our ordinance. Maybe the idea of addressing nursery and distribution as we're coming into nursery and distribution here in the season, and then at a update conference or a special meeting address with a little bit more depth, processing and testing. We've worked real hard to get here. Like most of these projects, it's been stalled out at possibly every turn there is. We'd love to get moving in any respect. Nursery was approved for 3 years next door on a property that is a fraction of the size of this. I really appreciate the staff's work on this one. It was less painless than the 1 acre CUP. So that's a positive thing. I think we're getting better and we're moving forward, and that feels good. So thanks, guys.
Is there anyone else? Go ahead.
Lisa Wright, Lewiston again. Just a couple comments. I support what has already been said on this end. I think the processing question and not having that in our ordinance, really because, as Mr. Blanco stated, it was done at the state level after the fact. I'd like to see you work with that in terms of, I think that there was a suggestion made that it's an allowed, you allow the use once that becomes available locally. I've seen that done in CUPs before. I know someone actually with stack licenses down in Hayfork, Mr. Devudian, that has a provision for allowing that in his CUP. But I think that's really important. Also, the opportunity for SHN right here to provide the findings which appear to be lacking, I think is a great opportunity to take advantage of. Time is of the essence in both the CUPs that you're hearing tonight so that they can move forward their licenses and be well positioned for the harvest season that's coming up. So I hate to see it delayed any further. There's also the economic development impact with the creation of new jobs, which is essential to this area as well, and keeping that wealth here locally. Otherwise now, the farmers really isn't operational distribution. They're having to search, out into either Shasta County or Humboldt County. So I think it's really important to get that moving and allow them to proceed with their development. So I urge you to approve this conditional use permit with those additional caveats. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom?
Veronica, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Veronica Kelly-Alves from Douglas City. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just want to encourage the commission to keep in mind, when we have these meetings, we hear a lot about how the state has this and the state allows that. And one of the beauties of the program, that when everyone voted to have this in the state of California, the California state allowed counties to create the programs that really revolve around the county's wants and needs and the community as a whole. And it's always, I have the state license, or we have the state this, or the state allows that, and that is a great stepping stone for the industry. However, it was made for the counties to be able to make their own decisions because the state doesn't understand each county's needs and wants, whether it's environmentally or on a community basis for cumulative effects as well. So I just sort of encourage you to keep that in mind. We are not up on some of these ordinances. Testing is not supposed to be on the same site and by the same people. This is a great landlord situation that seems to be set up. But we also know that there's a lot of situations where there are people that are not on the paper, but they're running it, a family member, a friend, and that may not be this. Of course, I'm not insinuating that at all. It's a great economic situation that they're setting up. But just keep in mind what our county ordinances are for, why we have them set up, and it's great that the state allows cannabis, and that people can get that all set up prior to having the county, but at the end of the day, we have to have our county stuff, we have to have our ordinances, and we have to have our county licenses and everything before everybody can move forward. I just wanted a quick reminder of that, because we hear a lot about the state everything, but it's Trinity County stuff that we need as well, and thank everybody for all their hard work. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom?
No.
All right, then I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, is there a precedent set for processing in Hayfork? Is there a CUP that allows when it happens for
No.
processing?
No.
Okay.
It's my understanding that processing is allowed on cultivation sites by individual cultivators, but we do not have a county ordinance that allows even somebody on a cultivation site to cultivate, to process somebody else's, to trim somebody else's crop.
And is it within the commission's wheelhouse to allow a use where there is an ordinance that does not exist that describes the use?
The only thing we could do is what I think it was Jake suggested, which would be to say that that we are granting the conditional use permit so that at the time when a processing license is developed in the county, they could proceed. That would be the most that we can do.
If it falls within all the mitigations?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, therein lies the rub.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't issue a permit for an activity that when the ordinance comes out, it turns out this site doesn't apply. They can't apply. We can't issue the permit to the site because of what the ordinance says.
Yeah, because part of the permit is what areas it's allowed in and everything else. So when developing the ordinance, you would have to keep in mind the fact that you had already, prior to developing the ordinance, conditionally allowed something to happen in the future based on what might or might not happen.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So at the beginning of your comments on this, you identified some ways forward with the item tonight.
Yeah.
Depending on giving staff an opportunity to finish the missing parts. Are you still on that page?
Yes, but the three possibilities are to move forward with it tonight and have SHN read in the findings that are necessary. The second option would be to continue it to our next regular meeting, which would be July 8th, I believe.
July 8th, yes, that's
Or
correct.
to hold a special meeting instead of doing the general plan update on the 24th, the evening of the 24th.
We would have to do some pretty significant changes for things that we have planned for the general plan update, which I understand the situation for the conditional use permit, and I understand the complications and that you really want to get into business. I would prefer not to have to go to the 24th, so if we could come up with an alternative that would meet your need, so we could get you in business, and that maybe possibly we could look at doing an amendment to the conditional use permit in the future, as things get sorted out with the processing. I understand that. As there's potential maybe to go forward with testing, depending on state and county regulations, I would definitely be inclined to work with you to make those things happen. If we can get sorted out with the things that we know are going to work tonight and get you in business, work with the findings and conditions that are currently listed in the ordinance, then that would be great. You know, we could work on a timeline for the other things. I would really prefer not to have to move all of the general plan update things, but that is an option on the table.
We would support moving forward with whatever capacity we can. The flexibility you're seeing is because this was brought to everyone's attention about 2 hours before this meeting,
Right,
after years of going through this.
right.
But we would love to move forward with distribution and with nursery, and at the next meeting, or, yeah, manufacturing, move forward as we can.
Can,
And if the commission could adopt or certify the MND, which does say there would be no impacts were processing and testing to happen, I think that's not contested.
okay, so,
And then we could handle the other ones down the road. I don't want to see the general plan update or meeting be disturbed either.
We want to see the general plan.
We're in favor of that.
Chair Stewart?
okay, so, yes, Bella.
It looks like Kim Hunter raised her hand, so she may want to say
Oh,
something.
okay.
Go ahead, Kim.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
yes. Can you hear us?
Hello? So,
Yeah.
I can. Hello. I can, yeah. So there might be a little bit of, I do want to point out, you guys, you know, are making progress. This is a really good project. This should have been caught earlier, and it's much needed. If we're going to support our cannabis industry, the distribution and manufacturing are very critical in the nursery. If we can somehow move forward with those components, which it sounds like that's on the table, very important. Also, when we heard about other distribution facilities in the area, you know, in the county, and we've had other conditional use permits that we've been considering, we've heard time and time again, you know, put these in the industrial area. This is where they should be. And the zoning is appropriate. So, you know, we have had those that have been proposed, those projects proposed for distribution. So now we have that in front of us for consideration. So I just urge you to, if there's a way to work forward, to really consider that, to get these folks in business and do what we can, and maybe circle back, like Lisa Lozier said, and it's been discussed, circle back later on the processing and testing components. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So we have a fourth possibility then for tonight, and that fourth one would be to adopt the CEQA and approve the conditional use permit for nursery, distribution, and manufacturing, and table and continue the conditional use permit for processing and testing. And for nursery distribution and manufacturing, we would still need to have SHN read in more findings. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So that is another possibility. And that sounds to me like what Kim is advocating.
Correct. So basically when the motion is made, what we would be doing is approving the use permit without the processing, without the testing. But I just want to clarify that we're not necessarily continuing to another meeting to add the other items, that we will add those as a separate action down the road. And hopefully, as was brought up, as regulations change and we have the ability to update our ordinance, maybe we can do that relatively painlessly.
Perfect. So the motion that staff is recommending is approve the conditional use permit for nursery distribution and manufacturing after we have findings ready.
Yes.
Okay. So do we want to go ahead and have SHN read in findings?
Have to hear what they have to say.
Sure.
Okay, so would you like to proceed and read in the appropriate findings for the individual nursery distribution and manufacturing?
Sure. Hi, this is Gary Reese from SHN. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I just want to clarify, there are findings that pertain to the proposed distribution and non-volatile manufacturing activities, but the county code does not contain specific findings for the proposed commercial nursery. So the findings that we'll be reading relate to distribution and manufacturing.
So Gary, if I can interrupt you just for a moment, I did copy off the ordinance just for the findings and conditions, and I made copies of those for the Planning Commission members. So they could take a look physically at what we have in our ordinance as you go through that. It might make it a little bit clearer. So I've got those to hand out.
Excellent, thank you for that. So I'm going to start with the findings that are for distribution, and these are in section 17.43B .040, distribution required findings. And there's 3 of them, A, B, and C. And so basically I'll read the ordinance language, and then under each finding I'll state the language for the finding. So basically the ordinance language states a conditional use permit for cannabis distribution shall not be granted by the Trinity County Planning Department unless all of the following findings are made based on substantial evidence. So finding A, the distribution as approved and conditioned will not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. So the finding is the potential for the project to result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment is addressed in the CEQA initial study, mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. The CEQA analysis determined that with the incorporation of mitigation measures and compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the impacts of the proposed project would be less than significant. Therefore, the project would not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. That is finding A. Finding B, the code language states the distribution includes adequate quality control measures to ensure cannabis distributed at the site meets state standards for a regulatory market. And the finding is the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state quality control measures enforced by the Bureau of Cannabis Control in order to obtain and maintain their state license for distribution. So that's finding B. The code language for finding C is the distribution operations plan includes adequate measures that address the federal enforcement priorities for cannabis activities. And the finding is the state regulations for distribution operations that are enforced by the Bureau of Cannabis Control are designed and intended to ensure consistency with federal enforcement priorities. The applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with these regulations in order to obtain and maintain their state license for distribution. So those are the findings for the distribution activity that is proposed. Next are the findings for the cannabis manufacturing. And these are in County Code Section 17.43F.050, the required findings for cannabis manufacturing. And the code language states, the appropriate use permit for cannabis manufacturing shall not be granted by the appropriate authority unless all of the following findings are made based on substantial evidence. Finding A states, the manufacturing facility will comply with all of the requirements of the state and county for the cannabis manufacturing. This includes, but is not limited to, product safety, THC levels, edible standards, timelines, packaging, and labeling requirements. And the finding is that the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state and county regulations enforced by the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch in County of Trinity in order to obtain and maintain their state and county licenses for non-volatile manufacturing. That is the finding for finding A. The code language for finding B states, the manufacturing as approved and conditioned will not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. And the finding states, the potential for the project to result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment is addressed in the CEQA initial study mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. The CEQA analysis determined that with the incorporation of mitigation measures and compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the impacts of the proposed project would be less than significant. Therefore, the project would not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. That is finding B. The code language for finding C states, the manufacturing includes adequate quality control measures to ensure cannabis manufactured at the site meets industry state standards. And the finding states, the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state quality control measures enforced by the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch in order to obtain and maintain their state license for non-volatile manufacturing. That is finding C. The code language for finding D states, the manufacturing facility does not pose a significant threat to the public or to neighboring uses from explosion or from the release of harmful gases, liquids, or substances. And the finding states, the applicant proposes non-volatile manufacturing activities which do not have the potential for explosions or the release of harmful gases, liquids, or substances. The non-volatile manufacturing activities would occur within enclosed structures that must be designed in compliance with state regulations to minimize potential impacts. As designed and in compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the proposed non-volatile manufacturing activities do not have the potential to pose a significant threat to the public or neighboring uses. And those are the findings for the cannabis manufacturing.
Thank you. Lisa, are there findings under the nursery that you would like to read into the record?
No, ma'am. There's no findings listed within the ordinance, and we will stick with what the ordinance gives us.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Then, does anyone have any comments? Questions, concerns?
So I'm confused a little bit on what exactly the action is you think we're going to take.
Well, we've got 4 possibilities.
But discounting the continuances.
Okay, then the action would be to adopt the CEQA determination of the mitigated negative declaration, and or not, and approve or not the conditional use permit for nursery distribution and manufacturing based on the recommended findings in the resolution, and those read into the record subject to the conditions.
If I could, I'm sorry. I would also like that the recommendation for approval include that, as well as the updates to the findings, that we would include the required conditions of approval as they are listed within the ordinance applicable to the types. What I'm looking at would be the conditions in our ordinance that are associated with nurseries, the conditions in our ordinance that are associated with distribution, and the conditions that are associated with manufacturing that are also included in the handout that I gave you.
Right. Okay. So is there any, is that clear? More or less? Well, why don't, I'm willing to go ahead and make a stab at a motion, and then we can have some discussion.
Thank you.
How's that work? Okay. I move that we adopt the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, determination of mitigated negative declaration and the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, MMRP, and approve the conditional use permit P-19-38 for the nursery distribution and manufacturing portion based on the recommended findings in 2021-8 and those read into the record, and subject to the conditions of approval set forth in Exhibit A to Resolution 2021-8, and also including those required conditions as listed in the specific ordinances associated with nursery distribution and manufacturing.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion. If there's no discussion,
I will go with comments I made on May 24th, 2018, which is, I still believe this is not an appropriate use at the industrial park. Part of our responsibility as planners is to plan. It's not simply to do road stuff. And I'm still of the opinion that these particular activities should not be in the industrial park. In the town of Weaverville. So, all of the above said, that we said here tonight, I'm not in favor of this.
you're not in favor of?
Of your motion.
Okay. And I'm, as I said in 2018, of the opposite opinion. I feel that it's a very appropriate location for this type of activity, and I fully support it. I think it's necessary for the entire county, for the financial welfare of the county, and for the financial welfare of all of the people in the cannabis industry in the county. And so I fully support it.
I have a question. With not knowing really much about Weaverville, honestly, where does Weaverville get its water? Is it from Trinity Lake?
No, they have their own
Municipal water.
municipal water plant.
Because it's like one of the questions that I wonder, it's like, which I don't know anything about it, but with my sister being on the board or the secretary over there at the Hayfork Water Works or whatever it is, whatever it's called, it was like, is the amount of water that that Hayfork has, will that affect the water?
This isn't Hayfork.
Oh, I'm sorry, Weaverville. Would a commercial grow in there affect the water?
The only water intensive portion, from my understanding, is the nursery.
Okay.
And that's all addressed in the mitigated negative declaration.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes.
there were, questions were sent out to the municipal water
Yes.
district, and they had an opportunity to voice their concerns, and those concerns were addressed.
Okay.
And so if there wasn't ample water, or there's concern.
They had the opportunity.
They had the opportunity to express that, yeah.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
Yeah, these activities are essential for this industry that's growing within our community. And these activities are already being utilized, outsourced out of our community. It would be really nice to be able to bring jobs home, employ locals for activities that utilize our exports within our community. Unfortunately, Trinity County has minimal industrial parks. In our downriver district, I'm not sure if there's one. There was some old logging sites, but those are all Superfund sites now, and I don't.
Same in Hayford.
Yeah, I don't think there's much they can do on it without extreme cleanup. And so Weaverville is the county seed. It is the central hub where there's 2 different highways going in the 4 directions all come together. It's equal distance from Hayfork than it is to Salyer and Coffee Creek possibly. As long as the mitigations are addressed with the industrial zoning and SUD, it seems appropriate.
It certainly makes more sense than having it sitting empty, and it was a cement processing, for God's sakes.
Yeah, cement processing is very loud and dusty,
Yes.
and there is semi trucks driving back and forth all day long, and the same thing with a soil facility. Soil facilities are notoriously stinky with manures and amendments and whatnot that are just exposed to the elements. And so if it's not appropriate, then I would like to hear more on why it's not appropriate.
Well, when this issue came up for the other nursery in 2018, there was testimony from people in the neighborhood across the creek concerned about it. I think they're about 700 or 800 feet away.
Okay.
And so there was some neighborhood concern. And it's not a question of whether this is needed by the cannabis industry. The question is, should it be here, right? Let's bring jobs back, blah, blah, blah. The question is, the planning group is, should it be at this location? And the objections we had back in 2018 still stand. The decision of the Planning Commission in 2018 was 3-2. It was not a resounding endorsement of it. It was the thinnest margin we can have. It passed. And I remain on the position that there is probably a better spot for it in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So.
However, I don't see any of those people here tonight talking against it. So.
I made a phone call to, if I may.
Go ahead.
I made a phone call to a community member that I know that lives, his backyard touches or almost touches the municipal water processing facility. And so the end of, I believe it's Glen Road, connects with the Industrial Parkway. And he says that there is a homeless encampment there that is active and walking through the neighborhood. He actually hears, this might be a little bit not beside the point, but there's people that poach the local deer down there. And his concern, one concern was that people would use Glen Road as an access for, there'd be more traffic on Glen Road, but Industrial Parkway is the use.
Right.
I would hope that with industrial activity and dozens of people working, that would discourage the homeless encampment, which is a real challenge that is polluting the water systems, and there's needles and just, it's a big challenge and a blight in our community. That was the one person that I had talked to said that he actually was here earlier because he wanted to hear about it, but outside of his concerns about the traffic, he would be in support of it. I did not see any letters in opposition. Was it only sent to within 350 feet, or with CUPs, how far is it sent out?
300.
300, which means that's like,
Diana.
there's probably no parcels that touch the 300. It's a big industrial property across the way. It doesn't seem like there's many parcels it seems kind of pushed away. I mean, it's all really large tracts. Timber Ridge, I've been up to Timber Ridge, and that's, you know, that's quite a ways away. Would it be on Davis Road and Fairway that would be the concern?
I don't have the map in front of me. There were the people that were, I guess that would be north or northwest across Weaver Creek.
Mm-hmm.
May I just make one point? I'm sorry, the MND.
Just a moment. Kim is on the line, so if we could hear Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
Hello again. Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I understand it, but okay, so where does distribution and manufacturing go? Where is the right place? Because we tried distribution in other locations. We were told, no, put it in industrial zone plans. So that's my one question, and in seeking direction as staff, where should manufacturing and or distribution go? If not in the business park, if not on the corner of Highway 3 and 299 with access to highway, where should that go? So as a planner, I want to say that this is the right location. And we do have a cannabis business, and it needs to be supported. It's much needed. So I would like to know where if the corner of Highway 3 and 299 doesn't work, or the industrial park doesn't work, what does work? And that's my question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
How much industrial stuff is in?
Use the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was like, because one of the thoughts, like I think the first meeting that I came to, when we were dealing with the Smith Pit deal there, and it's like you look at our emblem right here, it's like water, timber, minerals, there's all this, we have all these amazing resources, and it's like, it's like, how long has this property been sitting vacant? Because it's like, if we fill up our industrial stuff with this, it's like, one of the things is, it's like, where if another industry comes in, this is,
Where are you going to get another industry? There isn't another industry. I think we're just talking in circles, and we need to vote on this.
Okay, I'm sorry. That is like, I just.
And it's
I was
yeah.
just going to say one thing, the MND.
I will open up the public comment for one very quickly. Go ahead.
I was just say the MND was published in the newspaper, which started the commenting period. So even if people who were concerned from the 350 feet weren't notified for the 300 feet, they were notified via the newspaper. And
yes, I'm aware of that. That's why I said that nobody's here.
Thank you.
So.
If I
And
may,
as we've said many times in the past, relying on that notice in the newspaper for notifying the public is absurd.
Yeah, well.
But it's the ordinance we got.
It's a resolution, so we need to roll call. Okay, so
Commissioner McIntosh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart?
aye.
Commissioner McHugh?
No.
Commissioner Heaton?
What if you're not sure?
Then you have to vote.
Okay.
Well, actually, you don't have to vote. You can abstain. And because even with three of us voting, that's a quorum.
Because it's like, I'm not really,
You have to do what you want. I can't tell you what to do.
yeah, I know that.
You can abstain, you can vote, either way.
I guess I could say aye.
Okay,
I don't know.
Is that an aye?
Aye.
okay, then
We have a vote of 3-1.
3-1. One reluctant, two positive, and one nay. But that's okay. That's okay.
Now, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I know, it's okay. So, good luck.
So it passes.
Yes.
You're very, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so item 6. Do we want to take a brief break? 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take just a very brief 5-minute break.
Thank you.
That's the one thing, just so we can sometimes.
Right, and oftentimes this wasn't even ready until like Monday, or Monday afternoon, it wasn't ready until, which is really not enough time for us to really delve into this and understand this.
And the thing was, it's like, I looked
So
at this,
many.
Speaking of which, I logged on to my email, and it says you have, like, I have a couple days before I need to change my password. Is this stuff where you have to change your password periodically?
So it said it asked to change your and I had the same thing, and I said, no, I don't want my password changed.
Okay, so so it's not something we have to change then?
It asked if you wanted to change your password, but you didn't need to.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But anyhow, I got that, but because of how much it was, we had all kinds of company and stuff of that nature. It was like, so we tried to check my stuff, and I saw how much it was. And so it was like Tuesday evening.
Were you able to print it from your house? Or even have computer access?
I do have printer access, but it was like you said, this many pages.
Yeah, I bet, and this right here, I mean, this is background information that doesn't need to be like really thoroughly looked at. There's certain aspects where, the description and this and that, because this sounds like it's gonna be a common challenge for you. And this is, these
Correct. And so it's like this here.
You do the best you can. That is the supporting information. This is, so how I interpret it, this is the staff recommendations, this is all the recommendations and the foundation of the maps and such. This is.
I rushed to get something in my mouth before I left. That's the only down part about it. I like the 6 p.m. thing, get out,
Is the
pull the
secret
earlier,
document, this is
but
the environment. and
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to get dinner.
It's
Yeah, for sure.
California environmental quality, something.
Okay.
And so this has all the different, like geological and anthropological and biological and water assessment and such. And so you really, like, I've got a question about water. You can go in there and dive in, it'll tell you more about water than you ever really wanted to know.
Yeah.
And so this is a resource. And so, I gotta just encourage you to like read what you can.
Well, I understand, and it was like, and most of the time,
To answer your comment, where does Weaver Valley get its water from? From the Trinity River. There's a pumping plant in the city that brings water out of the river into the basin.
It's not East Weaver Creek, huh?
Well, it is East Weaver, but that's not the majority of the water.
It's not, it's out of the river, huh?
Most of it's probably 80% is coming out of the river.
So
The East Weaver survives a little bit of water. I mean, I live on East Weaver, and there's a water system above, there's a tank above that, and so they have some water there. So they can't pump clear up to East Weaver. So the East Weaver people are drinking East Weaver water.
Well, that's nice.
The town of Weaverville is drinking Trinity River water.
So,
Okay.
but doesn't the water flows this way and down through past
Which is fine.
Junction City?
Hey, Deborah,
Or
I have,
is it Douglas City?
No, it goes through Douglas City and Douglas City. And at Douglas City,
thank
the
you.
bridge is.
this is
the
not
public
until
can't-
item
the
9.
river.
Okay.
I have
Not
10
Weaver
copies of
Creek,
each
the
to the
river.
commissioners.
The
Can I just give it to
water
you now,
that's-
because it'll
the
have it right
Trinity-
after the next one?
Weaverville
There's 10
Community
copies
Services
of this and
District
10
pumps
copies of
water
this
out
for
of the
item
river at Douglas City and pipes it into Weaverville.
Oh, I didn't know, I thought for.
Because that is a
Roanoke's
lower
it went to 10.
elevation,
Yeah,
wouldn't
but they
it?
pipe it, they pump it
And
up.
they
here.
pump it all the way back
They
up?
pump it up in the storage tanks and.
I mean, I'll recycle, so if you
The
want to
source
bring me
of
any
water,
back.
for most of the water for Weaverville.
Shredded.
Is coming out of
Okay.
the Trinity River.
This is somebody
You
told me
might
the
say
other day,
can't
I was
lake,
like, pretty much
but it's coming out
Oh, no,
of
they
the
came with
Yeah.
Just so, I mean, you asked that question.
Yeah, well, it's like, honestly, it's like up until I became the planning commission, I really didn't come this way very often.
Here's another interesting little tidbit I'll give you. The industrial park has been there for about 25 years.
Thank you.
Health and Human Services has an office there. The big
Isn't that the stuff on the uphill? Okay.
Performing Arts Center. Shasta College is there.
Yeah, it's nice.
That new clinic is being built there. There's an office there. All that upper bench of industrial park is not, even though it's all industrial. Is that, the only other industrial application was that swimming pool.
Is it brownie points that we
So it's not really truly turning into somebody's vision as an industrial.
Congratulations.
Just for a lot of reasons, at least there's no real industry. Because there's not good, there's not good communication, or there's not good access to rail and all that kind of stuff.
Correct, correct.
Anyway, just, all your names are, they're,
Todd. Pleasure meeting you. And, thank you for, because it's like, there are some things, it's like.
well, I said, and Sharp is our representative from Weaverville, he's not here, so.
Yeah, but honestly, it's like, up until not too long ago, I haven't been there. It's like, I had no reason to come to Weaverville.
Sure.
It's like I've never been to Zania.
Well, you don't have,
Well, I've been to both of those places.
it's like,
You know, I got ancestors that are buried in Hoagland, which is the Henshaw Valley, but the family hasn't lived there in about 120 years.
like honestly, it wasn't until a couple of years ago, when my brother and I went hunting over towards Manzanita Ridge, that it was like, I'd even been to, and actually, we've been through Newport Valley, but it's like, I didn't even know, I wasn't even sure.
5 minutes, yeah.
Because it's like, because I had no reason to ever go 299 for the first one, that was Jerusalem, Comes, so you go 3 through Hayport.
Right.
See, I don't know how someone could live in Trinity County and not live on the Trinity River.
That's pretty easy.
Corner of my eye, and I was
So-
like, but anyway, girls, just add this to your belief system. Dad and Mom did a great job. You don't have to do this.
Is our 5 minutes up?
Thanks for
We're waiting for them to come
They're
back.
still so scared to do this.
We're in this together.
And it's like, I'm
Yeah, they thought it was funny.
but we're getting there.
Yep,
Isn't that what Victor said before?
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
you're not muted.
Okay, we're gonna bring the meeting back up. Let me get the speakers
I
on.
got 3 minutes on.
Okay.
It's live.
Okay, we're on.
All right, I'm calling the planning commission meeting back to order. And we're moving on to item 6. And item 6 is a conditional use permit brought by Green Beach. It's P-20-02, a request for approval of a conditional use permit for commercial cannabis uses, including nursery distribution and a type 6 non-volatile manufacturing. The 10.94 acre project site is located at 324 Frog Pond Lane, Frog Pond Lane, Hayworth. The project site is good heavens. The project site is situated on a rise above Duncan Creek Valley with site access provided via Frog Pond Lane from the public Summit Creek Road and is designated by the general plan as agricultural and is zoned agricultural 20-acre minimum. The proposed development activities will be infrastructure development in the southwestern section and in the northeast section of the property. To house the proposed uses, 10 shipping containers will be placed on the property for the requested uses and will be permitted with electricity. The proposed CEQA determination is a mitigated negative declaration. The applicant is Green Beach Ventures. The authorized agent is Flora. Assessor's parcel number 017-010-80-00. And the planner is Kim Hunter and SHM.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, members of the public, Lisa Lozier, Deputy Director of Planning, and I will be presenting this project for Director Hunter, who is unable to be with us this evening. So as previously stated, the project site is a 10.95 acre project site, and it is located in the community of Hayfork at 324 Frog Pond Lane. Assessor's parcel number 017-010-80. The project site is located approximately 0.3 miles from the closest section of SR3, State Route 3, and approximately 1,000 feet south of the confluence of Duncan Creek and Carr Creek, which are tributaries to Hayfork Creek. So a little bit of background information. The project site has historically been used for minor selective logging and agricultural activities. Currently, the site contains a commercial cannabis cultivation of up to 10,000 square feet of mixed light canopy area. Existing development on the site includes a permitted shop/garage of 2,256 square feet, permitted septic system, several hoop houses, and appurtenant improvements for the cannabis cultivation activity. A cannabis waste composting area, 2 ponds, recreational vehicle, and several accessory structures. A permitted single-family residence is currently under construction at the site, and the water source for the property is surface water diversion from an unnamed stream that fills the 2 ponds that are on site. Okay. So to the project description. The purpose of this project is to develop the property with 5 commercial cannabis activities, which include the following. Number 1, cannabis cultivation, up to 10,000 square feet of mixed light canopy area. Adult use, small mixed light tier 1 commercial license. Non-storefront retail business. Commercial nursery, type 4, with up to 3,500 square feet of canopy area. Distribution business, type 11, and non-volatile manufacturing operation. The applicant has already acquired licenses for the cannabis cultivation and non-storefront retail activities. The project proponent is applying for 3 additional licenses for the commercial nursery, distribution, and non-volatile manufacturing activities, which requires a conditional use permit per the county cannabis ordinance. So those project components. The cultivation. The property is currently licensed to cultivate up to 10,000 square feet of mixed light cannabis canopy area. The current cultivation area is located on the southwest portion of the property. The small tunnel-style primitive hoop houses are currently used to cultivate the cannabis plants, which are accessed from the sides of these structures. Let's see. Mixed light cultivation activity does not require artificial lighting or electric use, and occurs with the use of blackout tarps. Occurs with the use of blackout tarps to allow the applicant to have multiple harvests during the growing season. The applicant proposes to transition to 3 2,400 square feet, that's 7,200 square feet total, permanent greenhouse structures for their mature plant canopy and will continue to use the smaller light deprivation growing methods. Applicant currently houses its immature plants that are used on-site cultivation activity in one of the hoop house structures in the southwest portion of the site, and proposes to construct a 3,500 square foot engineered greenhouse to house the immature plants, which will include the use of artificial lighting. Also on site is an area dedicated to composting of organic cannabis waste located northeast of the cultivation area. A portion of the 2,256 square foot shop garage structure is currently used for drying and processing of the plants once harvested. In the future, the plants will be processed in 4 separate 400 square foot shipping containers. 2 of these containers will also be used for drying, and additionally, 1 200 square foot container will be used for harvest storage. For the non-storefront retail, California Bureau of Cannabis Control, with Trinity County concurrence, has issued the applicant a non-storefront retail license. The initial location for the non-storefront retail activity will be in a portion of the existing 2,256 square foot garage shop structure, and in the future, the non-storefront retail activity will be located in a 200 square foot shipping container. Commercial nursery. Applicant proposes a commercial nursery that will include on-site retail sales and the delivery of immature plants to licensed cannabis operations. The applicant proposes to construct a 3,500 square foot engineered greenhouse to house immature plants for the commercial nursery, which will include the use of artificial lighting. For distribution, Bureau of Cannabis Control issued the applicant a state self-distribution license on March 23rd, 2020, which expired on the same day in 2021. The applicant is currently in the process of renewing the license, having notified the Bureau of Cannabis Cultivation, and initiating the renewal process prior to the expiration of the previous license. This application proposes full distribution facility that will be located in a 400 square foot shipping container. Non-volatile manufacturing. Applicant is proposing to conduct non-volatile manufacturing activities in 2 200 square foot shipping containers and plans to manufacture bath bombs, lotions, balms, and edibles. Other structures that are proposed to be included with this project are 1 400 square foot cargo container to be used for cultivation, research, and development, a 120 square foot structure to be used for agricultural, chemical, and pesticide storage, a 120 square foot structure to be used as an administrative hold area. Also on the property is a permitted dwelling in the process of being constructed on the property, and current infrastructure includes electrical lines to be extended. I'm sorry, I said that was existing. So they're proposing that electrical lines extended underground to the new shipping containers and greenhouses, 2 3-phase power poles, and the applicant is proposing an additional 400 amp 3-phase electrical service. Applicant proposes to incorporate solar panels on the roof of the barn and the home, and a new septic system will be installed to accommodate waste from the manufacturing facility, which will have its own separate plumbing system. So they're proposing on the number of employees subject to seasonal fluctuation. The estimate would be a maximum of 12 full-time on-site employees. Site access is obtained. The property's main access will continue to be provided via Frog Pond Lane, and there is an existing lock gate at the entrance to the site that restricts access. No new roadway encroachments are required for the implementation of this project. Water availability is provided to the project site by a surface diversion from an unnamed stream. That stream fills 2 permitted ponds. Ponds hold an estimate of 370,000 gallons cumulatively. It is estimated that water use for both domestic and cannabis activities will be approximately 280,000 gallons annually. Water conservation methods will include drip irrigation, keeping the plant small, covering the greenhouse with shade cloth, and using irrigation timers. A small irrigation use registration has been filed with the State Water Resources Control Board, which allows the applicant to store water for cannabis use. Per these requirements of registration, the applicant is only allowed to withdraw water during the wet season, which they have listed as November 15th to April 15th, and the proposed project will not require the use of any groundwater or other additional water resources for any of its operations. They also discuss preservation of oak woodland habitat resources with all oak trees within a 16-inch diameter at breast height or with a secondary. Okay, a lot of this is getting above my head. So basically they're going to retain specific designated trees as required by their oak tree retainment plans, including 5 Oregon white oak trees that are slated for removal, and the trees will be cut with chainsaws. Hopefully that made sense to all of you. The comments received from staff, or to staff by agencies. So referrals were sent out to various county departments, different agencies, government agencies, and on the summary of comments, comment received from the assessor's office stating that there were unpaid taxes on the property and requesting that the mailing address to be updated, which I highly recommend because it makes it much easier for staff to communicate with our cultivators and people in the program when we can actually reach you. That's great. Caltrans responded with no comments. CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, sent a referral letter which required the following items: preparation of biological resource assessment, botanical surveys, California Endangered Species Act information, pond construction, nesting bird protection, and critical wintering deer range. The comments from CDFW were addressed in preparation of a biological assessment and incorporated as mitigation measures into the initial study mitigated negative declaration. Trinity County Waterworks did respond with a comment that they have no, Trinity County Waterworks has no comments on this proposal as it is outside of our district. Okay. Trinity Public Utilities District commented that on the substation that serves the project area, and that they may be reaching capacity and that additional service connections may be limited. And it looks like that is it for comments received. So additional comments, and I'm not really sure how to address some of these from the California Department of Toxic Substances Control. I may skip over this part if there's specific questions in regard to these comments. I would like to have Gary address those. I think that would make more sense and would probably answer your questions in a more appropriate manner. It does discuss the request from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. All of their concerns have been addressed in the California Environmental Quality Act initial study, mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. Comments from California Department of Food and Agriculture.
I think we should have read all of this.
I'm sorry?
We should have read all of these.
Okay, very good. I just don't want to miss anything important.
If we have specific questions.
Okay, very good. So basically, I'll touch on county compliance, or county code compliance. General plan consistency, the project site has been designated as agriculture in the county general plan. And as discussed in the general plan land use element, areas designated to be preserved for agricultural production should have minimum parcel size. Uses approved, single family rural residential housing with associated structures. So that additionally, the proposed residence and accessory structures are consistent with the agricultural designation. The A designation is they are pertinent to the proposed agricultural activity, and therefore the proposed cannabis operation is found to be consistent with the general plan. So as it discusses on the county code compliance, through that discussion, as illustrated on the project site plans and noted in table 3, the proposed project has been designed to be consistent with the development standards in the county code. So on the findings of fact, and this is specifically to the conditional use permit findings in 17.32.010, which is not the same as findings of fact for the specifics of the cultivation ordinance, or cannabis ordinance, I'm sorry. Correct me if I get that wrong. Use permits are approved at the discretion of the Planning Commission or the Planning Director, and that is based on making the findings of these particular findings of fact. So Number 1, sound principles of land use. A use permit shall be granted upon sound principles of land use. Finding, as required by the county's cannabis ordinance, the applicant is applying for a conditional use permit for the expansion of an existing commercial cannabis operation to allow a commercial nursery, distribution, and non-volatile manufacturing activities. In addition to the existing mixed light cultivation, non-storefront retail activities, evaluation of the project has determined that the project as proposed, conditioned, and mitigated is compatible with the general plan land use designation, neighborhood character, and the limited intensity uses of the surrounding area, and is consistent with the county cannabis ordinance and compliant with CEQA. Finding 2 would be not injurious. A use permit shall not be granted if it will be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or if it results in the creation of a public nuisance. Finding, the project as proposed, conditioned, and mitigated will not cause detrimental effects to public health, safety, welfare, or result in the creation of a public nuisance. Land uses surrounding the project site include rural residences, cannabis cultivation farms, non-irrigated pasture land, and other agricultural activity. The closest sensitive receptors are more than 400 feet from the proposed cannabis activities, which exceeds the 350-foot setback requirement in the county's cannabis ordinance. Therefore, it is not anticipated that nearby sensitive receptors will be significantly impacted by potential impact from the project. Finding 3, plan consistency. A use permit must comply with the objectives of the general plan or specific plan for the area in which it is located. Finding, the project as proposed and conditioned is consistent with the goals and objectives of the county general plan and A20, which is the agricultural with a 20-acre minimum zoning district, as the proposed project consists of the expansion of an existing agricultural related activities on a site designated as agriculture. So to the staff recommendations, and I'm going to stop at this point on this one as well. For this particular project, conditional use permit, we have the same issue with not including the specific findings from the cannabis ordinance and also the conditions required for approval. So I would recommend at this point adopting the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, determination of a mitigated negative declaration, the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and B, that we would allow Mr. Reese to read findings as required for approval for the types of uses that they wish to use for their cannabis operation, and include the conditions as required from the ordinance. So that's my staff report, and I'm glad to answer any questions that I may be able to do.
Does anyone have any questions of staff? And thank you for that.
I'm struck that we so quickly get an answer to the impassioned plea or question from the planning director about where we might do this, if not the industrial park, because there's no industrial zoning anywhere. Well, gosh, here we are in Act 20 doing the exact same 3 conditional use permits. Who would have thought? I have no questions.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, then please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Honor Wright with Flora, and I appreciate your comment, Commissioner McHugh, excuse me. And I was actually just telling, the applicants are here in the front row tonight in hopes that we get this passed and they can continue on their very long journey of finally setting up their the rest of their infrastructure. And just to address that comment, the last item we were looking at was a large-scale operation. We're talking about large 5,000 square foot buildings, the greenhouses, which is appropriate for industrial use. Now, switching gears to this project, we're talking, yes, it's on agricultural land, which is approved by, in all of the ordinances of the types that we're doing, but we're talking about a much smaller operation. We're talking about a true family farm operation versus the one we just saw as a more conglomerate operation. That being said, it is also significantly close to State Highway 3, and they own their private road to which gets accessed from Summit Creek and then Highway 3. So if you take a quick look at the mapping, you could see Highway 3 is about a quarter mile away, I think it was said. So different circumstances, same license types, but different size. And this is really a family farm that's looking to do what I think a lot of people should do, is value add. I mean, here you have your 10,000 square foot farm. You already are producing licensed cannabis. You also have a non-storefront retail license. Well, without this distribution component, they're having to go to a distributor before they go to their non-storefront retail, right? And so adding the distribution component and adding the manufacturing component means after they go through their harvest, they can use their distribution license to then go take it to a testing facility, bring it back, use that same distribution license to transfer it over to their manufacturing license or their non-storefront retail license. And so to be able to operate so fluidly is what I think many people should look to do in order to really capitalize on the money that can be spent for these licenses. It doesn't need much infrastructure, as we can see. Shipping containers are in the process of being permitted. I think about 3 of them are permitted so far. The rest on their way, as well as electrical has been permitted for those shipping containers. And one thing I do want to just comment on in regards to the TPUD, Trinity Public Utilities District's comment. They made that comment on August 18th, and just a month later, they approved the project of giving the higher ampage to this farm. So that's already been satisfied. No issues there in regards to power and the availability of power. It was granted by the TPUD. I don't really have much else to add. I think it's a really straightforward project, excuse me. Again, I think this is something really valuable to farmers when they can keep it all in-house. And this is a true family business. And coming from a family business myself, I always love to support those too. So I'll just open it up for any questions you might have. I know Gary can answer a lot as well, but I'm also here for your convenience.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions of Anna before she steps aside?
I do.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Frog Pond Road? Is that a private road on this parcel?
It is a private road, yes.
So the address of the parcel is Frog Pond Lane, excuse me. It's on that. That's their private road that connects to the public road?
Yes.
At their parcel boundary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of Anna?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this?
Good evening, Lisa Wright, Lewiston. Just once again, I would urge you to approve both the CEQA mitigated neg deck as well as the conditional use permit to allow this family-owned small business to move forward in a timely manner to meet their small business objectives. I think it's really exciting that we have the opportunity to see bath bombs and lotions and stuff manufactured here in Trinity County with plants that are grown by those same people. So I hope that you support this concept of family-owned small business and that you'll approve both of those items to move them forward quickly. Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to speak? Okay, is there anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak? Does Kim want to say anything?
I don't have any hands raised.
Okay. All right, then. If Gary could go ahead and read in those findings, so we have them. Gary?
Yes. Everyone hear me okay?
Yes. If you could go ahead and read in those conditions, so we have them already, and then I can bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Will do. So the additional findings that need to be made for this project, similar to the last one, pertain to the proposed distribution and non-volatile manufacturing activities. And just to note, the county code does not contain specific findings for the proposed commercial nursery. So the first set of findings relate to distribution, and this is in County Code Section 17.43B.040, required findings for distribution. And the code reads, a conditional use permit for cannabis distribution shall not be granted by the Trinity County Planning Department unless all of the following findings are made based on substantial evidence. And the code for finding A reads, the distribution as approved in condition will not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. And the finding is, the potential for the project to result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment is addressed in the CEQA initial study mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. The CEQA analysis determined that with the incorporation of mitigation measures in compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the impacts of the proposed project would be less than significant. Therefore, the project would not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. That is finding A. The code for finding B reads, the distribution includes adequate quality control measures to ensure cannabis distributed at the site meets state standards for a regulatory market. And the finding is, the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state quality control measures enforced by the Bureau of Cannabis Control in order to obtain and maintain their state license for distribution. That is finding B. The code for finding C reads, the distribution operations plan includes adequate measures that address the federal enforcement priorities for cannabis activities. And the finding is, these state regulations for distribution operations that are enforced by the Bureau of Cannabis Control are designed and intended to ensure consistency with federal enforcement priorities. The applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with these regulations in order to obtain and maintain their state license for distribution. So that concludes the additional findings required for the distribution activity. Next is the findings required for cannabis manufacturing. And these are in County Code Section 17.43F.050, the required findings for cannabis manufacturing. And the code reads, the appropriate use permit for cannabis manufacturing shall not be granted by the appropriate authority unless all of the following findings are made based on substantial evidence. And the code for finding A reads, the manufacturing facility will comply with all of the requirements of the state and county for the cannabis manufacturing. This includes but is not limited to product safety, THC levels, edible standards, timelines, packaging, and labeling requirements. And the finding is, the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state and county regulations enforced by the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch in County of Trinity in order to obtain and maintain their state and county licenses for non-volatile manufacturing. That is finding A. The code for finding B reads, the manufacturing as approved and conditioned will not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. And the finding is, the potential for the project to result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment is addressed in the CEQA initial study mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for this project. The CEQA analysis determined that with the incorporation of mitigation measures and compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the impacts of the proposed project would be less than significant. Therefore, the project would not result in significant unavoidable impacts on the environment. That is finding B. The code for finding C reads, the manufacturing includes adequate quality control measures to ensure cannabis manufactured at the site meets industry state standards. And the finding is, the applicant will be required to demonstrate compliance with state quality control measures enforced by the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch in order to obtain and maintain their state license for non-volatile manufacturing. That is finding C. The code for finding D reads, the manufacturing facility does not pose a significant threat to the public or neighboring uses from explosion or from the release of harmful gases, liquids, or substances. And the finding is, the applicant proposes non-volatile manufacturing activities which do not have the potential for explosions or the release of harmful gases, liquids, or substances. The non-volatile manufacturing activities would occur within enclosed structures that must be designed in compliance with state regulations to minimize potential impacts. As designed and in compliance with existing regulatory requirements, the proposed non-volatile manufacturing activities do not have the potential to pose a significant threat to the public or neighboring uses. And that concludes the additional findings required for this project.
Thank you very much. Now I'll bring it back to the commission. Would you like me to go ahead and read the motion, because I've got it written down, it should be, and then we can have discussion?
Go for it.
Okay. I move that we adopt the California Environmental Quality Act CEQA determination of a mitigated negative declaration and the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, MMRP, and that we approve the conditional use permit P-20-02 based on the recommended findings in Resolution 2021-09 and those read into the record, and subject to the conditions of approval set forth in Exhibit A to Resolution 2021-09 to include required conditions as listed in the ordinances associated with nursery distribution and non-volatile manufacturing. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, and so is there any discussion?
So with regards to, if I may, with
Please.
regards to distribution, there's no minimum size structure for a distribution facility. I mean, 200 square feet for a distribution facility, is that, and that does not include that's not just self-distribution, but this is the distribution license to distribute other farms' products.
I appreciate your question. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you.
If we have on
I think I can answer that question. The activities that can, let me phrase this, the non-storefront retail obviously can't happen on site. The area for that's just going to be for storage before they go to delivery. Same idea with distribution. It's really a pass-through for their own company to be able to stay on property, get their product directly to their non-storefront retail license and their manufacturing license. And they also have the option as a distributor to sell to other distributors. So there is no plan on kind of letting things get stacked up, I guess if you would, to where it would need more room than it already is proposed for. The plan is to keep the ball rolling very fluidly and again, keep it contained to a smaller business model.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But the ordinance does, for distribution, does bring on security requirements. I mean, it's a full-on distribution license. It's not just, I understand what you're saying, how they intend to use it, that's not what the license limits them to.
Absolutely, I understand that. All the security protocols will be adhered to when that license is at the state level applied for. You have to do all those quality control procedures, et cetera. The applicant just reminded me there's 4 shipping containers altogether for distribution. I'm sorry, 400 square feet, sorry. I don't have the maps in front of me. So yes, there's going to be all the protocols that the state licenses asks for, including security requirements that will be adhered to. The idea is that unlike, again, the other CUP we might have heard where they're looking for a large volume coming in and out, volume is, of course, needed to run a successful business, but it won't be to the same scale. The 400 square feet proposed will be enough to store for the limited time it's going to be there before it again passes through either their own licenses or to yet another distributor or another manufacturer in the area or on the coast or, you know. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of having a full distribution license versus, let's say, a transport only. Where transport only, you can't take it to retail, you can't take it to manufacturers, you're still limited to just that other distributor. So this gives them the wiggle room, to put it very frankly, of being able to do a lot more with it while following all the state procedures.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further comments, discussion?
If I may, with regards to the storage units, they said some of them are permitted.
The building permits have started.
They have started.
I'm sorry, I should say it there. Yeah, nothing's been built per se. It's all started in the process of the building permits part of it, so that we can get things running on that end while we've been waiting for this to come up. So the actual construction will happen once the building permits are approved for those storage containers, and after the CUP is approved, we've been waiting on. Just trying to get our ducks in a row.
Word.
Yeah.
Okay, so we ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Did you have something else to
No,
say?
I'm just gonna stand. I have no, excuse me.
Well,
Yes.
I forgot, did your motion include the conditions of approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it
The additional ones?
did. Yes.
All right, thank you, sorry.
Commissioner McIntosh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. Item number 7 is an appeal of the planning director's decision, P-21-10. It's an appeal of the planning director's decision to deny an extension under urgency ordinance 1355 for commercial cannabis cultivation license CCL number 504 for 100 Wingert Road, Hayfork. The appellant is Her Vang, and its assessor's parcel number 017-410-19-00. And the staff and the appellant's representative are requesting that this item be continued to the July 8th meeting to allow time to further discuss matters relating to this appeal. So does staff have anything they want to say at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I will open the public hearing. This was noticed, so we need to open the public hearing for any public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to item number 7? Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak?
I'm not seeing anybody.
All right, then I will close public comment, and we need a motion to continue the item to July 8th of 2021.
I motion to continue this item. Do I need to say which item this is?
It's item 7.
Item 7 to the July 8th meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So this item is continued to the July 8th meeting. Item 8, not July 8th. Item 8 and item 10 have, both are appeals of the planning director's decision. Their files P-21-11 and P-21-13. And matters related to these appeals have been resolved, and so staff requests that agenda items 8 and 10 be pulled from the agenda, so there will not be a public hearing on either item as they have been resolved. So we will move on to item number 9. And item number 9 is the appeal of planning director's decision P-21-12. It's an appeal of the planning director's decision to deny an extension under urgency ordinance 1355 for commercial cannabis cultivation license CCL number 397 for 3738 Xenia Bluff Road, Xenia. The appellant is Jessica Smith, and the assessor's parcel number is 020-410-11-00. So, staff?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, members of the public. Lisa Lozier, Deputy Director of Planning, will be presenting item number 9. And So staff recommendation on this is to deny the appeal. And so summary, Jessica Smith submitted an appeal of the director's decision to deny an extension letter under urgency ordinance 1355 for cannabis cultivation license CCL number 397. The initial extension denial letter dated January 5th, 2021 was issued because the renewal fees had not been submitted prior to December 9, 2020, which is the date that the urgency ordinance 355 was approved. License renewal fees were paid on April 12, 2021 during the 30-day period provided by the Board of Supervisors. The file was again screened for an extension when it was determined that the cultivation license was last issued on November 5th, 2018. Since the license was not issued on or after January 1, 2019, it still does not qualify for an extension. So Section 2A1 of the Urgency Ordinance 355 states that the term of any cannabis cultivation license issued on or after January 1, 2019, and for which an application to renew such license has been submitted to the county, effective date of this urgency ordinance shall be deemed to be extended for the term of this urgency ordinance as provided in paragraph C of this section. And Section 2A, subsection 3 states, applicants for licenses under subparagraph 1 and 2 of this paragraph must pay the applicable application renewal fees and submit a renewal application as a condition of receiving the extension of their licenses for the term of this urgency ordinance. That basically completes my discussion for the staff report. I open that up for questions by the commission if you have any request for further information.
I have one question. And obviously I don't know the circumstances, but there have been several cases where there have been appeals of the decision to deny that we have not seen the staff report on because they've been pulled or, or whatever. And so we don't know the circumstances in those. But it seems as though in some cases, the planning department is willing to work with the applicant or the appellant, and in some cases, you're not. And because some you work with and everything ends up fine, and some end up like this. And I would like to know what makes that determination. It just seems pretty random at this point.
I will not disagree with that. And based on my limited work, with the cultivation licenses and the extensions and that sort of thing, I will attempt to address your concern. And I believe, based on my discussion with staff and going back through the cannabis file and basically the events that have transpired over time, that really the deciding factor here was the only license that was issued was in 2018. That because of deficiencies that they had on the property, that they were not issued an additional license in 2019. And because of the way the urgency ordinance is written, they would have had to have had that renewal or extension in 2019 in order to be able to move forward. And based on the information we have, that the last license was 2018, and the deficiencies that were brought to the attention of the applicant and I believe the consultant as well, were issues with non-permitted dwelling, or that they hadn't received all of their permitting criteria, septic and garage. Now, ultimately, those things were taken care of in time, but not in time to issue the 2019 license, which is the key in this case, is my understanding. So I can't speak to any of the other items. You know, I'm not familiar with those, but that's my understanding of this situation.
Okay, I understand that, but we had a situation at the last meeting with Mr. Malenko, and we ended up letting him work with the planning department.
I understand, yes.
And I am just concerned that we might not be treating every appellant equally.
I understand and appreciate your comment.
So, okay, so that's my question. Anybody else have any questions?
I'd like to hear from you.
I'd like to speak.
I would like to hear the story.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I think a lot of your questions might be answered after I talk, but
Well, but we need to
No, for
finish,
sure.
see if there's anybody else that has any questions of staff.
So there was no cultivation in 2020? Or
You know, that's my understanding. I do have our staff person, Daniel Marvel, who is a code compliance, one of our code compliance, and he has the file. He might be able to illuminate some additional information from that file.
And they have complied with all of the concerns with regards to septic, water, and housing structure?
So in August of 2020, the septic dwelling and garage were inspected and finalized. So yes.
So there's an established cultivation site with all mitigations in place except for
Payment.
the payment. Okay. Thank you.
Now you may go ahead.
thank you so much. I put together a timeline that I think was passed out to you to try to answer some of these questions. I won't go through every single step. I think it's pretty clear that since the beginning of 2018, this farm has been working on their compliance and has been compliant. I do want to point out that the license issued in November 5th, 2018, it was valid until November 4th, 2019. So when we're looking at this language about not having a renewal issued within a month before the year ended, when 90% of 2019 there was a valid license, this is why we're here tonight, because the director and I could not agree on that. And I am asking the Planning Commission, through our due process rights, to look at the facts of this case. So in 2019, a renewal application was submitted and paid for. The renewal application was one of the things we passed out. And then in February of 2020 was when we were first notified of the septic and building permits that still needed to be finalized. Very quickly, we started getting on that to get that finished up. But unfortunately, as we all know, at the end of March, the entire world shut down, including Department of Environmental Health, and they stopped doing inspections. So we weren't able to get anybody out there until August to do the finalizations on these permits because of COVID. I do want to point out that the urgency ordinance was done for this very reason. It was supposed to give relief to all cultivators. And this applicant should look pretty similar to some de factos we might have seen earlier this year, where renewals were paid and submitted in 2019, continue to do so for the 2020. This licensee is prepared for this year as well. An active state license that they would like to use. And again in 2020, right after that the septic and building permits were finalized, then we have the devastation of the August complex fire, to which this licensee was evacuated and was severely affected by that fire. So again, when we're leaning on the urgency ordinance to deny this appeal, it seems a little backwards to me if they had a license all 2019 virtually, and they themselves were affected by all the disasters in 2020. Just because on the county's end it may not be a very fast process does not mean it should fall on the fault of the license holder. We see this too often, to where everyone is doing what they're told to do, what they're supposed to do, they're doing it as quick as they can, and then at the end of the day, what? We don't get a license from Trinity County still. I do want to point out that if we are able to keep this business alive, that's just as much more tax revenue come November for this county as well. The new tax that was passed last year is very important to this argument because it's very important to our community to get funds back here to Trinity County. And to really top it all off, I have 2 other clients in this same situation that got extension letters. Whatever the reason, I'm not trying to question the review that happens, and in this instance, after we cleared the deficiency, a second review for whatever reason. But precedence has been set with 2 2019 license holders that also submitted their renewals and payments that have never had a license issued since 2019 getting their letters. And we have an applicant in the same position that is now here fighting tonight to try to get her license. We're talking about, through the urgency ordinance, fair and equitable treatment for all licensees, and that's what we're asking for here tonight. I also want to point out that we follow this process, this administrative remedy process, because that is our 14th Amendment right as due process, is to be able to come out here and show you the facts of the case. If we didn't have that at play, then we would have no say in what happens around us. We would have no opportunity to give you the circumstances at play that are very serious circumstances. COVID was no joke. The fires were definitely no joke. But the history of compliance will show you that they have been doing everything they have to do and have been asked to do every step of the way. Now, as Commissioner McIntosh asked, all permits have been finalized long ago, and we're just looking to keep a business that has been here, first applying in 2017, keep them alive, especially after the fires, keep that property in business, and allow for this county to get as much tax revenue as we can. This is the opportunity to show our community that we do back this industry. I included not only the last license, yes, issued in 2018, but was valid through end of 2019, the renewal that was submitted in 2019, and then the state license that's still valid. We're on track to get all their renewals turned in much earlier this year. But I do ask this commission to take a stand today and to give this business their license so that they can continue to operate according to what you asked them to do, and to do what Trinity County wants them to do and give them money. I do want to point out that 2019 and 2020 checks were also cashed. So $12,000 has been spent with no license. They're prepared to spend $6,000 more this year if they have the opportunity to. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
So their fees are paid up to now?
Paid up. So in late 2020, when the office was closed, several attempts to bring the check in, the office was closed, the office was closed. I tried to mail it in, it bounced back as a bad address.
Do you have a copy of that?
Of the mail?
Envelope?
Probably not.
In the future, that would be very good to keep.
Absolutely. Very soon after that last bounce back was Director Hunter's decision to say no more renewals. That very quick decision on December 8th. So the first denial was because of that. The 30-day period opened up. The first day it did, we were in there with the renewal application and the fees. So everything's up to date on the compliance. We've already started talking about the CEQA checklist. We have the compliance package set up with these farmers to keep on going with all their renewals. So, you know, my job as a consultant is to keep these farms compliant and keep doing everything year after year they need to do. We're prepared to continue to do that with Trinity County, but unfortunately we need your help here tonight to do so.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Anna?
No.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Go ahead, Lisa.
Good evening. Once again, Lisa Wright from Lewiston. I think this is a really good example of what Chair Stewart alluded to, and that is different treatment of different people within this program. I really feel that this is a misapplication of the urgency ordinance language, and I don't really quite understand the determination or the denial by the planning director. It doesn't really fit with other things that we've seen. The license, the last issued license was November of 2018, but they submitted their renewal in November of 2019. They submitted it, but it wasn't processed by the county. It's the fault of the planning department that it was not issued, not this farmer. They paid their renewal fees. They did all the paperwork that was required. The comments weren't even received on the renewal and the additional deficiencies with that renewal for over 3 months, February of 2020. So this penalizes a farmer who's done everything that they should be doing. They renewed again in 2020 without the county ever issuing their the 2019 license, November 2019 license. They applied again, and the county accepted their paperwork, accepted their money, and again did not process. This is just not equitable. This is not fair application of our ordinances, and it's not a fair decision by your planning director. Frankly, I'm appalled that this has happened. The no license is not issued is not due to the fault of this farmer, it's due to the fault of the planning department. I understand understaffing, they keep getting a pass, but the farmers don't get a pass. This is a time for you to act and deny the, approve the license and deny staff's request to deny the license. They gave a pass to 185 farmers in that period that didn't have their licenses. Now, what's going on here? Why are people being singled out differently? I don't know, but it's not a good look, and I'm hopeful that you'll remedy that situation this evening. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is John Miranda. I'm here on behalf of my wife, Jessica. So my wife wrote the check. I'll give you a rundown on how we found out what was going on. My wife called me January the 29th and said that we got a letter from Trinity County that was post-dated January 5th that we had lost our license due to non-payment. Okay, so I started calling. My wife said I wrote the check on the 16th. It was in Trinity County on the 23rd, and so we contacted our consultants, and it was the county wouldn't accept it. And then on May 23rd, they cashed that check that they declined in October. And it's been painful. It's been hard on my wife. It's been hell for her health. That's why I'm here, is to try and stick up for her. Because it was supposed to be easy going this route, and it's been very painful, very difficult. I appreciate the time and energy you guys are focusing on this issue, and I hope that my wife can continue to make a living. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Tom Malenko, Douglas City. The reason I'm not celebrating your earlier vote is because I did want to stick around for this one, for the very reason you mentioned, Chair Stewart. My personal read of the urgency ordinance was not, okay, for these renewals, we want to go through the fine-tooth comb, make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. It was, we got overwhelmed, we had a pandemic, we had firestorms through 50% of the county. Understandably, planning couldn't keep up. Everybody that had a license and is licensed now, let's let them keep going. And we've got new rules, we got a new ordinance, we got an EIR. Let's focus on processing the new rules. I don't understand why we're here in the growing season a state license, metric, like, or participating cultivator, ready to pay their local taxes. And this year, more than any other year, when we have a county tax, we're reducing the amount of people in our program. I understand staff is overwhelmed. I get that, and I understand we needed the urgency ordinance to address that. But I think in a situation like this, these people have been in the program, they're doing their best, they're ready to move on to the next part of the program. I think we should let them have the season. And I think we should grant this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. Then I will bring it back to the commission unless there's somebody else that wants to speak, and I don't see anything else. I have another question. So when somebody pays, the county will keep their money but not issue a license?
Thank you.
If you would allow me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I worked with staff to go through their file, and we developed a bit of a timeline that I think is going to answer some of those questions, hopefully. So first of all, I would like to confirm with Mr. Marvel that we did indeed send emails with the deficiencies in 2018, just to clarify that issue. And while he's preparing that information, in 2019, a renewal application was received on November 14, 2019. That renewal application was not processed due to discrepancies with the property's main water source and additionally the existing unpermitted septic dwelling and the accessory structure I mentioned earlier. So in August of 2020, the septic dwelling and garage were inspected and final, so that was done. In 2020, a renewal application was received on November 30th, 2020. That application was unsigned. So it makes it a little bit difficult for staff to process incomplete applications, and a signature is really very, very important. The urgency was enacted December 9th on 2020. The CCL was screened for urgency ordinance extension on December 15th, 2020, and disqualified for incomplete renewal application. And additionally, no renewal fees were submitted at that time. Denial of the urgency ordinance extension letter was drafted and given to admin staff to mail on January 5th, 2021. And let's see, we also have 2020 renewal application signed and renewal fees submitted April 12, 2021. And at that point, for the urgency ordinance, the 30-day window had passed for expired CCLs. And my last bullet point on here is upon submittal of renewal fees and resubmittal of complete renewal application, CCL 397 was once again screened for urgency ordinance extension, and at this time it was discovered that CCL 397's last issued license was November 5, 2018, and then was at that point determined that it did not qualify for a license extension under the urgency ordinance number 1355. So that's the information that I have for you out of the file.
Okay, but that does not answer my question about the
As far as staff taking in payment on renewal licenses, I wouldn't be able to answer that for you. I mean, I would love to give you an answer for that, but that's something that I cannot address. I can address the physical evidence in the file.
Right, no,
and I appreciate very much your question.
Yeah.
I appreciate where you're coming from on that.
Is it, let's rephrase it, is it normal practice for staff to take in renewal fees, deposit them and deposit them while they are still researching? I mean, would, you don't,
You know, that's a good question,
you don't, it's-
Chair Stewart, and typically because I don't take in fees, you know, based on county requirements, let's say. So in a typical scenario, if someone was to submit an application with fees, yes, we would take those, yes, we would deposit them, yes, we would review the application. There is also the ability to request refund of fees. You know, and outside of this realm, which I will admit that I am not completely familiar with, it is not an unusual situation for staff to take fees, take an application, review that application, potentially deny it, and then offer the ability to request a refund. So I'm just throwing that out there for information.
okay, okay, yes.
Just as a aside, county cash handling policies would require them to deposit those monies upon receipt.
Okay,
So they can't
that's
just
what-
keep the
that's
money in the
exactly-
pile and then wait for
Thank you,
the.
that's exactly what I wanted to know. So they may or may not have been told they could get a refund. And they deposit, the money was deposited, so they're out $12,000 with no license. And should have probably been part of the urgency ordinance. Okay, thank you. So, bring it back to the commission then. Any discussion?
Well, there's a fully permitted, or I'm sorry, yeah, there's a property in Xenia that has a permitted septic, permitted house, and a cultivation site that is ready to go.
Exactly.
My understanding is there's not many permitted buildings in Xenia. It's a long ways from there. If we deny this license, they're not issuing new licenses. If it's denied, this business will not have another opportunity
Not for a long time.
for a long time to proceed forward. And Xenia, granted, I've never been to Xenia, but I know it's near Garberville. It's a cultivation hub of the, licensed and black market. There's a lot of cultivation that's unlicensed going on down there, and these people, outside of the unlicensed cultivation, are wanting to be licensed.
Yeah, to me it's a no-brainer. I mean, if somebody is making a real good faith effort in an area like Xenia, they need to be given every opportunity to succeed so they can be an example to other people that may be cultivating illegally, and shown that there is a path besides the illegal market. There is. You can be skeptical all you want, but there is.
Do I get to say something now?
Yes, you can. Maybe.
Please.
Go ahead.
Well, being privileged enough to serve on the Diana Stewart Commission here, there's all the emotion aside, and I'm sure they're good people, there's the procedural issue. The ordinance says you have to do X by a certain date, you gotta do Y by a certain date. What I am swayed by is the inability of the staff to act timely on this, on many things, due to staffing, due to COVID, lots of reasons. I'm not making a judgmental statement there. The observation is they've not been able to execute on a number of things. And this seems to me to fall into that category. The timing of things is it, so if we had not had COVID or fires, it strikes me that this license would have been completed once all the deficiencies were removed in last summer. September 3rd, it says the septic was finalized. Now, I don't actually understand the process in this county when the application is made in November on the 14th. Deficiencies are found in February. Presumably by that point the license is not issued. We roll through the spring. We roll all the way to September before the deficiencies are removed. That entire growing season now is probably shot unless they just grew anyway without a license, assuming the license would be forthcoming. That's a different issue. But COVID did intervene, and all of this stuff, they were caught up. It would have been nice to see some evidence of the attempt to pay the fees on time, but I'll accept that happened. So it strikes me that this is a case where I would support the appellant and say that the staff is probably going a bridge too far and shooting this one down.
So I can agree with that.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we uphold the appeal, finding that that the appellant was largely in compliance and more than largely was in compliance and was unable to get the process done in a timely fashion through no fault of their own, whilst the county delayed under the guise of emergency ordinance when they were unable to perform on their side. So I don't know if that's all that needs to be in the motion, but that's the justification for my finding.
That makes sense. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the last item is item 11, resolution to initiate a zoning text amendment, a request by the planning director for the planning commission to adopt resolution number 2021-07 to initiate an amendment of chapter 17.43.050, section 17.43.050.8.8, limitation on location to cultivate cannabis regarding commercial cultivation, cannabis cultivation within 350 feet of a residential structure on any adjoining parcels. The Planning Commission has requested a minor wording change.
So the resolution was prepared that would allow the Planning Commission to direct staff to make a change to the wording in regarding to the word adjoining. And basically what this comes from is on a variance that I believe we actually heard again today, in regard to what the difference is between adjacent and adjoining in our ordinance and how that directly impacts whether the 350 feet regulation is applied or not. You know, is a house within that 350 feet, or is it, you know, is the word adjacent changed by a parcel, or specifically in this case a roadway that may divide the parcel that is proposed for cultivation versus the parcel with the home that is within 350 feet but not necessarily described as adjacent based on a fairly strict definition of the word. So that's how we got to this point, that there is a concern that using that very strict definition kind of circumvents the intent of the commission when the ordinance and the requirement for the 350 feet and the variance were first established. So at this point, staff is asking direction from the commission. You know, we've provided the resolution and ask for a little bit of input on what your intent or the intent was originally and what you would like to see in an ordinance brought back to you.
You know, I can't find the resolution.
It's on the back.
It's on the back.
Ah.
You know, I had that same problem actually.
On the back of what?
The memorandum.
It's on the back of the memorandum.
Did you not?
So if you look at your,
Item,
Item
I
7.
didn't get an item 11 memo. At least, I don't think I did. Thank you.
so if you flip that over.
Yeah.
We thought it might shorten the meeting if we
I did not throw it away. I honestly don't think I got it. It doesn't matter, I got it here.
Chair Stewart,
Yes.
just a quick minor clarification is that the word we're concerned about is adjoining.
Right.
Okay. Previously it was mentioned adjacent, so I just want to make sure they're different.
Well, and to be clear, this resolution doesn't specify the new ordinance or the change. This resolution asks staff to write the ordinance, to write the amended ordinance, bring that back to us, which we will look at the final language. I mean, that's a step I think we could skip, frankly, because we're talking about changing one word.
Yeah.
And instead of dragging that out all summer, I would, just speaking here, the wording we're looking at says, for specialty cottage, specialty and small licenses, cultivation shall not be allowed within 350 feet of a residential structure on any adjoining parcels. And I can see us change the word adjoining to other, any other parcel within 350 feet. I might add a further word, and just to muddy the water, is we could say legal parcel. Legal parcel is a term of art defined in the ordinance. Remember, this was the case where someone has two parcels, they own them, they do adjoin, or actually they're within a quarter mile, I think, there was some distance.
A quarter mile.
So whatever that gap is, if they own both parcels, the residence is on one, the grow could be on the other one, okay.
And that's okay.
So that's a legal parcel.
Exactly.
In other words, same owner. So if we throw in here that we say that will not be allowed within 350 feet of a residential structure on any other legal parcel. It takes out the issue of
Right.
the same owner.
Yes.
So any other legal parcel that has a dwelling on it gets the setback.
Yeah.
I think that's the intent, to answer your question. I think that was the
works for me.
board's intent. And I think if we just make that change to the ordinance, in our resolution,
Yeah.
the next step could be the board. It doesn't need to come back to us to change that one word and have us approve it again.
Do you want to rewrite the resolution and bring it back, or?
I think we can fix it. I see a question in the back.
Yep, back here.
Yes.
As a staff member that's been processing the majority of these for the past couple of years, adding legal parcel creation research to this process is very time consuming. So I may suggest that you just take out everything after residential structure.
So read what that would say.
Okay.
And if you are concerned about legal or illegal residences, then you may want to have a.
No, it's not.
No, it's not the residence.
It's
the
parcel.
parcel. It's the, so the problem is, you own two parcels, they both have houses on them.
Mhm.
The grow on your first parcel might require a variance from your very own house on the second parcel. And you don't want it, because you don't care, you don't want the, but this would require it. I suppose the thing is, you could sell that second house and create the problem next year with the renewal.
I don't think I'm understanding.
Okay, there's a condition where you can have one parcel and that's where you live. You have another parcel that's within a quarter-mile of the parcel where you live, and that's where you grow.
It's contiguous.
Doesn't have to be contiguous.
Well, I don't remember. There was discussion about the,
I don't think it has, I think we just, I don't know.
Within
I made
a
it.
quarter mile?
But within a quarter mile, yeah. But in any case, it's a quarter mile away, so that wouldn't make any difference. But there's another situation where you own two parcels and they are adjoining, they're touching each other, or one's across the street. But you own two parcels and there are houses on both of them. Your son lives in one, you live in the other. But you own them both. And you're growing on your son's property. Your son's house is within 350 feet. It's 200 feet from your house is within 200 feet of the grow site on the property where your son lives. So you've got two parcels that are right by each other, across the road, next door, across the stream behind your back gate, something. And so legal parcel in this case wouldn't be doing research to see whether the boundaries are legal. It would be doing research to see whether or not you own both parcels, and so it's null and void. And you do that anyway. Because you have to know who owns them.
You're trying to avoid a variance where there's two parcels under the same ownership.
Yeah.
I don't see that frequently.
No, you don't see it frequently.
you never saw the road either until this last one came on.
But it does happen. And that's what he's talking about with legal parcel. And it's something you do anyway, but legal is, 10 years from now, somebody's gonna be asking, well, what do you mean by legal parcel?
No, it's defined in the ordinance.
Well, and that's my question.
It is spelled, it's in the definition.
If it's defined in the ordinance, then
How is it, what does the ordinance say that defines, I don't remember.
A
the
distinct
ordinance
and separate
defining legal parcel. Does it?
That's not word for word, but it says a distinct and separate assessor parcel number.
I'll read it.
Darryl, would you like to talk about that?
A legal parcel means a parcel with a distinct and separate assessor's parcel number, where contiguous legal parcels are under identical ownership, an individual or entity, by an individual or entity. Such legal parcels shall be counted as a single parcel for the parcel.
Okay, so then legal parcel works, yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Then I would ask, do we want to refer back to that definition of legal parcel?
Yes.
To explain it?
Yes, because otherwise it could really cause a problem, just like.
Just a legal parcel as defined in the.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Which would be easy.
Yeah.
And then we don't get this confusing discussion about
What is it?
checking the
What-
legal
what are
creation
you
of
talking
parcels.
No, it's not to do with legality of a parcel. It has to do with
Yeah.
the term defined in the ordinance.
Yes, exactly.
And we don't seem to capitalize defined terms in our ordinances, but that helps
I agree,
because it means,
yes.
oh, it's a defined term. Just some.
I don't really want to say this, but the definition you just described of legal parcel doesn't create a legal parcel. So.
No.
Well, it's not
Here we go again.
I know.
The term is defined in the ordinance.
Yeah, but
That is the way the term would be used within the ordinance.
And that's fine for within the ordinance, but that does not create.
We're not trying to create legal ordinances.
Right.
Yeah, and
We're
that's
just
right.
trying to.
We're saying it's a parcel with an APN owned by the same guy. That is the definition of a legal parcel in this ordinance. That has nothing to do with what's a parcel in the county and.
And that's the case with all that whole ordinance, because we talk about legal parcels being
No.
established all the time. So.
No, it's not.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very specific
It's
case.
a very distinct.
Just for the variance.
Yeah.
Well, it's just for the ordinance.
Okay, so what do you want us to do?
I think what I am hearing is that you are directing staff to take a ordinance with your proposed corrections to the Board of Supervisors for approval.
Yes.
You guys don't agree?
Yes.
Because it skips
Yeah.
a step.
Yes.
Normally
Yeah.
it would come back to us when we read the final word.
We don't need
We're
that.
talking about changing one word.
Yeah.
So do you need this signed or not?
Yeah, we still have to do the resolution.
Yeah, we still need to do the resolution, and we can change the language on that however you would see fit. And I understand that our
But I should
direction.
not sign this.
No, I will provide one for you, you know, when we make some
That's
changes.
all I'm asking, is do I
Okay.
need to sign it? And it's not. Okay. So is there anything else we need to do with item 11, or we are good?
Are you clear? Because we need to call for a vote on this resolution as amended.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the amendment, okay.
Okay, so good.
I move that we adopt resolution 2021-07 as presented with the following change. Where it cites 17.43.050A8, we insert the following. Replacing the word adjoining with the words other legal parcel, comma. And then the resolution would continue and makes the following environmental finding.
Does that work for you?
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Then,
I'll second that.
okay, and this is a resolution, so we need a roll call.
Commissioner McIntosh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Heaton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to matters from the commission. And I just want to say that this is my last meeting. Despite the fact that Commissioner Sharp went to Supervisor Gogan and demanded that I be replaced, which almost caused me to decide to stay the entire 4 years because that was not a cool thing to do. I feel that, and have felt for some months, that it was time for me to retire from the commission. And Liam knew that I wanted to retire, and so he has been looking for someone. And left it up to me whether or not I wanted to stay. But he found a very good candidate, and he was gracious enough to allow me to talk with him and approve, which I highly do. And so it has been a real pleasure. It really has.
You have a
wonderful retirement.
you have a wonderful retirement, and you've provided a long and wonderful career on the planning commission.
Yeah, I have really enjoyed it, and I have to say that I really will miss it. My work, my husband thinks I'm crazy because I was always, had very stressful jobs, and he said, well, aren't you tired of the stress? I said, no, I kind of wreck on it. So we'll see how I do.
You can come to the podium.
Exactly. I can come and raise heck at the podium.
Absolutely.
So I will miss everybody. And I don't know if anybody will ever listen to this recording, but I do want to say that more women need to apply for things like the Planning Commission, because it's not just something that the men of Trinity County should be doing. I knew nothing when I started. Some would say I still don't know anything, but I think I've learned a lot. And it's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Well, you'll be missed.
Yeah, your historical memory and understanding of being on this board for the last 8 years?
Going on 9.
Going on 9 years has been such an asset, and it will be missed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So now, matters from staff.
You can tell us who's the new guy?
Well,
No,
I
you
don't know.
can't.
I don't know if he's been approved by the Board of Supervisors
He has
yet,
to
so-
go. I was kidding.
So, anyway, matters from staff, I will leave that up with, it has been very much a pleasure to serve with you, Chair Stewart.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate your insight and your kindness and your patience, which I'm sure was tested on occasion. And I will miss you very much.
Thank you.
So I hope, you know, the next chapter of your life is very pleasurable for you.
Thank you. Well, I'm still president of the Quilters Guild. I'm still active in Rotary. And I still am on the Board of Supervisors for Southern Trinity Health Services. So I'm sure I'll have plenty of...
You'll still be a little bit busy.
Yeah.
I will be contacting you for various other things. Also, just to confirm, our next scheduled meeting is on July 8th. And I will take just a moment to let you all know that our general plan update kickoff meeting that is going to be a Board of Supervisors meeting. Planning commissioners will be invited and very much encouraged to come. Our consultants are going to do a lot more of a deep dive kind of discussion on the general plan update in general, how the process works, what the expectations are, kind of a general timeline. And then after that meeting on the 24th, we'll all be meeting at the Trinity Alps Performing Arts Center, where sub-consultants will be talking about their particular processes, what their plan, what they'll be doing in the general plan, and how we're going to hopefully involve various different persons from Trinity County on technical advisory groups and through stakeholder meetings, and just kind of, of general information and a general timeline, kind of just as a kickoff for the project. We've got a really super spiffy website that they have designed for us, so people can log on and request, they can leave us their email information so we can make sure that those that are interested are updated every time we have a new project or a new part of the general plan update, or if we're going to have a community meeting, that we can do outreach in a more efficient manner. We'll be sending out flyers and posters, and I think we've got some interesting little things to give away, and our consultants are planning some kind of interesting exercises. It'll be a little bit more fun for the public as well. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and I certainly hope all of you will attend. And
what's the time of day of it?
So what we're looking for is the Board of Supervisors meeting is going to be 2 to about 4, maybe last a little bit longer depending on how long the presentation lasts. And then the meeting at the Trinity Arts Performing Arts Center, or Trinity Alps, I'm sorry, is going to be from 6 to potentially 9, depending on the interest for people there. And there'll be another presentation for the public as well. And, additional information as we get everything hammered out will be forwarded on to all of you.
Except me.
Oh, you're going to get it too. So I want to make sure that you don't get left out. So even as not in your official role as a planning commissioner, I would highly encourage you to come and be a part.
Well, thank you. And I probably will. And, it's kind of addictive.
Okay, keep the stress level up.
Well, land use is kind of an interesting thing, it's very frustrating and we can all see the issues and the problems and we can all kind of agonize in a way over what those solutions ought to be. But it really sticks with you, if you're interested in land use, it's just kind of an interest that never goes away.
And just for clarity, the commission's role and participation on the day of the 24th is to be there just to bear witness and support the supervisor meeting.
That's correct.
Unless they have specific comments or questions that they address to you.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So
generally, they have a line of seats set aside right at the front, so you can, you're right there.
Okay.
So I think that's it for me. I guess the last thing I would like to add is thank you all this evening for your patience. This was a very difficult meeting for me to get through, so.
You did very
just
well.
To make it all happen.
You did very well.
So thank you, and I'll call that good for me.
Okay.
If I may, I have been receiving a lot of feedback from members in the downriver community of concerns over water. And it's concerning that the implementation of the EIR protocols are not going to be able to be enforced, it sounds like, in any time frame, as the farms are utilizing the water and the neighbors are running out of water. And so I really hope that we can get that the department can get a handle on that and start exercising those implementations, because it is a dire situation out there and the season is just starting. And so if there's anything on my side that I can do to encourage or motivate, let me know, because it's a top priority for our downriver community residents.
Okay. Never hurts to have people write us letters. Also, and I'll kind of piggyback on the general plan update, it is a little bit different venue, but it's also a very good way for members of the public to express their concerns for vital resources. And if you have someone in mind that you think would be someone that would be very beneficial to sit on one of those technical advisory groups, I would love to talk with you about that.
Right. But at this point, if there's a neighbor that's running out of water, and there's 3 farms up above them, there's really nothing. Just send a letter, but there's nothing that can be done at this point of time.
I'm not really sure what our legal remedy to that would be. That's something that I would want to discuss with Director Hunter and potentially with legal counsel.
Yeah.
In regard to the urgency ordinance and the plan they're doing to transfer everything up. So it does help that we have something physical to say, people are really having an issue with this.
Yeah.
Can we please address it?
And one challenge is that the farms are owned by new people that are not known in the community, and some of the affected neighbors are senior citizens that don't really feel comfortable putting their name out there as complaining over, and so can it be anonymous, or does it have to have their name connected? It's tricky.
You know what? I would take an anonymous letter.
Okay.
It always helps, to have a face associated with that, but I do appreciate their concerns.
I can tell you that I have submitted complaints and used my name, and it has never gone any further.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. And for our official complaint process, the names of the complainants are not available to the public. That's not something that we would release to the public without a warrant or a subpoena from a judge.
Okay.
And
So,
you can,
you know, for
they
whatever
can-
that's worth.
They can always, like if they send a letter to Lisa, say, please, I wish to remain anonymous, but provide their name and phone number in case she needs to contact them.
Certainly.
You know, but just request that they remain anonymous.
Yeah, yeah, but it's, many parts of Junction City are drying out and big
It's
farms.
happening all over.
Big farms are on top of the hill and, senior citizens are running out of water, so we need to figure it out.
Okay, well, I started to put my stuff away and I realized I have not adjourned the meeting. The meeting's adjourned.
I do have one last official act I will ask of you.
Something to sign.
Yes, I need a signature, yes I do.
Okay.
That's exactly what I need.
Right on there.
Please.
You know, keep my phone number and call me.
Yes, by all means.
Yeah, it's 717.
Meeting as a